Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Due to COVID-19, Committee of Adjustment public hearings are being conducted virtually by electronic means through WebEx webinar, an online digital platform, and streamed on the City of Toronto Planning YouTube channel. Participants who have registered in advance will be able to make their presentations to the committee using WebEx webinar, which is moderated by city staff. Anyone wishing to view the hearing may watch it on YouTube. Participants who have registered in advance will be connected via their computer, tablet, smartphone, or telephone, and have the option of participating via video or audio only. All participants will automatically be muted upon entry when your item is called. Each participant will be unmuted by the city staff, one person at a time. We'll also ask you to mute all your other devices until you're called upon to speak. Please only use one device at a time, as use of any additional devices can cause static noise which can interfere with the audio of this hearing. To ensure further audio clarity, we suggest that you do not use the speaker phone function of your telephones. Those participating by video appearance will be temporarily upgraded to panelist when your item is being held. During this time, your camera will be enabled and you will only be visible during your 5-minute allotted speaking time. At all other times, your video will be disabled and you will be reinstated as an attendee. Committee of Adjustment staff will share presentations submitted in accordance with the written submission deadline. Many members of the public and applicants are not allowed to use the share screen option or any other panelist controls during a video appearance. City staff will remove you from the panelist role if you fail to respect this instruction. For all those who are waiting online, please ensure that you have called in with the phone number that you were originally registered. If you call in with a different number, you will not be able to speak on the item. At this time, we'd like to make a really important land acknowledgement. We are participating in this public hearing today online from Council Chambers and the North York Civic Centre. We would like to begin this meeting with an acknowledgement that Indigenous communities have been part of this land and this area's history since time immemorial. We would like to acknowledge this land on which we reside and work with gratitude and respect. It is the traditional territories of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We are encouraged to reflect upon our commitments both collectively and individually in taking steps towards meaningful reconciliation with Indigenous communities. Now, in accordance with Section 45 and 53 of the Planning Act 1990, as amended, this meeting of the Committee of Adjustments of the City of Toronto is called to order. My name is Nadini Sankar Peralta, and I will be chairing today's meeting. Joining us on the panel today are our astute members, Member Paul Kidd, Giuseppe Bartolo, Natasha Manning, and Ron Hunt. Also present are our Deputy Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Simon Lamb, and some very hardworking planning staff, Sam Mozayani, Brendan Clapp, and Irvin Bridgeraj. The Committee of Adjustment considers applications for variances from the provisions of the zoning that applies to property, permission to extend or alter lawful non-conforming uses, and consent to sever property to create new lots. Receiving a copy of the decision of the committee, anyone attending today who wants to receive a copy of the decision of the committee on an application must submit a written request for a decision by email. Ensure that you include your name, address, and email address because the Committee of Adjustment and the Toronto Local Appeal Body, the TLAB, will be sending notifications and appeal updates by email. If you do not agree with the decision of the committee, you may be able to appeal the decision by the TLAB or in some limited circumstances to the Ontario Land Tribunal. However, the provincial government recently amended the Planning Act and generally removed rights of third parties to appeal Committee of Adjustment decisions. As of November 28, 2022, only the applicant, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons and public bodies, as those terms are defined in the Planning Act, are permitted to appeal decisions of the Committee of Adjustment. Appeal instructions are set out at the bottom of the decision of the committee. The hearing procedures are as follows. I'll call each item in the order it's listed on the agenda. Where an application is uncontested, the applicant or agent may proceed with their presentation if desired. When the committee does not require a presentation, applicants are to advise the chair if they still wish to speak on the item, and the committee may ask questions or take the matter into committee for a decision. Each speaker, including the applicant or agent, is given a maximum of 5 minutes to address the committee. I will ask you to summarize your remarks when you are reaching the 5-minute mark without exception. When addressing the committee, please state your name and address clearly. Please remember to confine your remarks to the matters described only in the application. The applicant or agent proceeds first and will make their presentation to the committee on the application. Please note that the committee may entertain revisions to the proposals at the hearing today to ensure that the revised application is accurate. And for all those entitled to a notice of the application are informed of the changes, the committee may decide to defer the application if it is especially substantially revised. Then individuals either in support or in opposition of the application will be invited to speak. If more than one individual wishes to speak to the application, we ask that you try to not repeat the points already made by others. Committee members may ask questions of each speaker after they've finished their presentation. When all speakers are finished, the applicant or agent has an opportunity to rebut only those issues that were raised by the previous speakers within a 5-minute time frame. This will mark the end of discussion on the item. The application will then be taken into committee for a decision. In today's morning session, I'd like to ask members if there is a conflict of interest that they'd like to declare. I have none. Checking with members, and there's none declared. And let's move on to confirming the minutes of the last meeting. We have minutes to approve for October 6th, 2022. And in that was that hearing was myself, Member Kidd, and Member Hunt. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Motion to approve those minutes by Member Hunt, seconded by Member Kidd. All those in favor? Those minutes have passed. And now moving on to the February 2nd, 2023 minutes. That was myself and Member Kidd who were present for those minutes. Can I get a motion? Member Kidd moves those minutes to approve. I second it, and those minutes have been approved. Now, I understand there's no deferrals for this morning session. There's no files closing. Is that correct, Deputy Secretary Treasurer?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So with that being said, members, let's move on to item number 1. Item number 1 is number 263 Haddington Avenue. This is an application that requires a consent to sever, and then the development of 2 new dwellings that are listed in the 2 parts. There is an engineering report of February 28th. There's also a staff report noted that requires standard recommendations. Forestry conditions, there's no TRCA comments, and there are 2 letters of objections. Let's invite Riza Sekhawati is the agent. I'm going to just double check if the agent is online. Riza Sekhawati.
Good morning. Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Okay. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Riza Sekhawati, and my address is 2 Hemford Crescent in North York, Ontario.
Okay, great. We do have an area resident ready to speak on this matter. So if you can make a presentation within 5 minutes, and we'll be able to ask some further questions from there. Go ahead, please.
Yes, sure. As you know, the application is for severance of the existing lot into 2 park lots and construction of 2-story single-family dwelling. And consequently, we have 2 variance application as well. I believe that the variances are minor, and also we are in line with prior development in the street. And in order to show you that, I'll have a few photos to share with you, which if I can ask the staff to show the photos that I have.
Okay, as they're getting that up, continue with your presentation, please.
Yes. As I said, this is going to be 2-story buildings, and yes, this is 269 in the neighborhood, which they haven't severed the lot, but they have built 2 semi-detached houses there. If we go to the next photo, yes, this one is exactly the same concept as what we are proposing. They have severed the lot and 2 new single-family dwelling, and we are exactly doing the same concept. Well, more or less same concept, yes. And the next one, this is the next adjacent and neighboring property to the subject property. On west side of the subject property, you see both properties. The old property is old property, and the new one is already severed, and 2 new single-family dwelling is being constructed there. So we are quite in line with the area development, and variances are very minor, I believe. I won't take more of your time. If you have any, unless you have any question for me, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you so much for that. I do have a question. All of these severances that you've just shown us, where exactly are they located in proximity of your current proposed development?
As I said, one was next to us on the west side of the subject property, adjacent neighboring property, and the 2 others are very close. If you the street numbers were on the photos, 269 and 252, and we are 263. They are very close to this property.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions of the agent at this time? Yes, Member Kidd, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question about the variance number 2, I guess, with the change from the side yard setback from 1.8 meters to 0.6 meters. That seems very large to me. But when I look at number 265, the adjoiner to the west, it appeared to be that the side yard setback might be similar. Do you happen to know what the west side yard setback for number 265 was? It was the property you were saying was developed quite similarly.
I believe it's the same. They are also 1.2 meters on one side and 0.6 on the other side.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, members? If not, let's move on to the first speaker who was waiting online, and that's a Saul Anisfeld.
Madam Chair, staff have reached out to Saul, and he's indicated that his correspondence that he sent in is sufficient, and he does not wish to participate today.
Okay, so he did send in a letter of objection,
Correct.
and that's been noted on file, and members, I'm sure, have had a chance to read that. Okay, so that being said, unless members, there's any other questions for this applicant, I'm noting the letter of objection. Mr. Sekavati, have you seen that letter of objection? And again, it was, yeah, they were noting exactly what Member Kidd had said around variance number 2, the setback going to 0.61, and they had also had concerns about variance 8 with the eaves projection to 1.15 meters. So, you know, if there's anything you'd like to you know, share on that, they're at 265 Haddington Avenue, and you know, that would be good if you could just address that publicly.
Yes, as I said, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they have done the same thing. They have 1.2 on one side and 0.61 on the other side, and we are doing the same thing.
Okay. Yes, Member Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to clarify with the agent that he has noted both the February 28th Engineering and Construction Services Report and the May 4th Planning Report, both of which contain conditions recommended by those departments.
Yes, I'm aware of those, and all of them are normal practice, and we accept all of them. Yes, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from panel members? If not, there's engineering report, there's a staff report of May 4th, there's forestry conditions, and we've already addressed the letters of objection and no TRCA comments. Can I get a motion on this, members? Member Hunt, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe that there has been a satisfactory presentation, that the context of this proposal is in keeping with the neighborhood. So I would move approval of the consent to sever, subject to the objection, or subject to the conditions attached to the report of Engineering and Construction Services on February 28th, and the conditions contained in the report from planning dated May 4th, 23, and subject to urban forestry standard requirements.
Thank you, Member Hunt, with a motion to approve with those conditions. Can I have someone to second this? Motion seconded by Member Bartolo. All those in favor? Unanimously approved. Mr. Sekavati, your application has been approved with those conditions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Members, let's move on to item number 2, which is number 80 Avondale Avenue. So number 80 Avondale Avenue is an application, again, a proposal to obtain consent to sever the property into 2 residential lots. There's a part 1 and part 2 to this. So I'm wondering, let's just see, we've got forestry, conditions apply. There is a transport recommendation of March 2nd, and previously there was one of February 22nd. specific comments and conditions there and modifications that are requested from a staff report of May 2nd as well. There are 4 letters of objection, and we do have folks who are willing to speak to this application. So I'd like to call out the agent, Mehdi Ajvand. Mehdi Ajvand, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. Before going through, my name is Mehdi Ajvand. I'm from 3429 Young Street, Studio Design. I'm here as the architect of the project. Before going through the presentation, I would like to announce the amendment that we have in our application as per the staff report we received and did communicate on that. I would like to amend the variance number 6 and number 7 on both minor variance application A0068-23NY and for part 2 A0069-23NY, variance number 6 and number 7.
Right, so number 6, what are you changing it to? So
it will be, we are sticking to 2-story building, not 3-story, so it's going to be eliminated.
So part 1 for variance number 6 has been eliminated.
Yes.
And I just want to double check.
And consequently, variance number 7.
Okay. And variance number 7 as well, you're saying is eliminated as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a same amendment on part 2, variance number 6 and number 7 is eliminated.
Okay, so for part 2, the same thing, variance number 6 and 7 has been eliminated. So members, if you can note that, for parts 1 and 2, variances 6 and 7 eliminated for each part. Any other modifications, sir?
Not at this stage.
Okay, as we have folks to speak to this application, can you provide us with a brief presentation?
Sure. Since I guess, we have some opposed neighbor, I try to be as brief as possible, then I'm going to be able to address others' concern. We are proposing this severance lot on 80 Avondale. I'm pretty sure that, committee panel are familiar with the area. It's located south of Shepard and east of Young Street, and this area is evolving area. There are so many applications, so many densification is on the run for this application. Just as a sample, I propose on this page 1 of supporting document, I show the location of our property and then the proposed application, which is under review over there, is so close to our application. They are proposing high-rise building and also having a 4-story townhouses. And what we are proposing is somehow like a transition from these kind of dense residential development closer to the Young Street. Then, we have a transition to the more neighborhood area. The character of neighborhood over there, because our 2 first variances is related to lot area and frontage. The character of this area, we do have a combination of 50-footer, 40-footer, and even 25-footer. If we look at even location plan that committee staff provided, I can mention some number. For example, 90 Avondale, 92 Avondale, 93 Avondale, 98 Avondale, 58, 46. All these numbers are 25-footer with the same size that we are proposing. So, and these cases, these lots are not generated by severance application. It was all those lots were there originally. So I would say the proposed frontage that we are proposing here then is somehow in line with the context and character of the neighborhood. There is so many examples that we have same frontage and same lot area in this neighborhood. In terms of the variances, we try to be as modest as possible. We diligently work with the planning department and urban forestry to be able to address some technical concern. As you can see, we eliminated a couple of variances, and also we have some adjustment on the front yard setback to be able to address urban forestry concern as well. Basically, our variances are other than the 2 first variances, which is for the lot frontage and lot area. We are asking for the lot coverage 32% instead of 30%. which is very common in the area for the variance number 5 and 4 and 5. We are asking just 7 centimeter wall height variance on both sides, which is a little bit more than 2 inches variance, which I believe that's very minor in nature. Variance number 6 and 7 are eliminated. Regarding the side yard setback, on the exterior side of proposed 2 units, we are complying with the minimum required 3 feet setback. So I would say on the east side and west side of these 2, when we have an existing neighbor, we are complying with the zoning bylaw, and on the interior side of these 2 new lots, we are proposing a variance, 2 feet variance for the side setback, which combined gonna be 4 feet. We are building them at the same time, and combined side setback between 2 new building gonna be 4 feet, which is more than required. So this side setback variance is for just the interior side yard that we have between these 2 new one. And again, consequently, variance number 9 is regarding the deck side yard setback, again interior side, and also the roof eave side setback is again interior side. All the variance number 9 and 10 are consequences of variance number 8 for interior side yard setback. These are basically very brief introduction of what we are proposing here. As you can see, we try to be as modest as possible, and I would be more than happy to address any concern or question from committee panel or neighborhood.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Ajvan? There being none, let's move on then to the first speaker registered. We've got a Victoria and Roy Stewart, or Victoria Stewart for Roy A. Stewart. Ms. Stewart, are you there? Victoria Stewart?
I'm not unmuted.
Okay, I can hear you now. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Victoria Stewart. I'm a practicing solicitor in the province of Ontario. I live at 77 Glendora Avenue, and I represent the owner of that property, Roy Ambry Stewart.
Okay.
I am making my presentation.
Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We can
I
hear
am
you.
making my presentation in 2 parts to the committee. The first part is that I would request that this application be deferred. The staff reports have noted, I do not agree that the removal of the request for variances 6 and 7 are minor in application. We have not seen adequately revised plans that show what the difference will be by reducing the basement slab to accommodate these variances. And the importance of this is that in the staff reports, there were 2 matters that have been noted that may come into play when you see revised plans. One of the items that was noted was that the gradient of the driveway had to be conditional upon not being beyond a certain slope. And we cannot ascertain that without seeing how the revision with the lowered basement affects the slope of that driveway. The second aspect is that there are 2 options from urban forestry. I presume that the applicant is probably looking at option 2 as the choice option, but again, no plans are showing how with the revision to the basement and possibly the revision to the positioning of the driveway, how this will affect option 2 under urban forestry's recommendation. So that's my request vis-a-vis a deferral. If the committee is not agreeable to that, my substantive comments go as per the letter of complaint, which is that this is still within the OP designation of neighborhoods, and the agent who is presented for the applicant has tried to imply that this is an area in a great degree of transition and flux. The reality is that the blue dots that he's showing as being some evidence of this, all of these applications currently pending, do not accord, because a great number of them are west of trade winds, and trade winds is to become the new service road. It will become a new boundary for that whole area. So the applications west of trade winds have no import here, as is the case with those to the south of Avondale, where the existing use is actually multifamily in any case. The actual subject area has very few houses with less than 9 meters frontage. The agent has commented on some, but if one walked it and if you did a review of some of those current small lot singles, some of them predate the bylaw, so they're not applicable. There is not a history along Avondale of Committee of Adjustment severances into less than 9-foot frontages.
I'll ask you to summarize, please. Your time is
presentation.
almost up.
No, I think I've made my 2 points. One is a request for a deferral until more of the plans can be refiled and the various objectors have a chance to review those plans and comment in a further round. And then my second is that this is not a transitional pocket. It's actually still a very stable pocket.
Okay, thank you very much for that, and duly noted about your request for deferral. I will raise that with committee members as well as with the agent. Committee members, do you have any questions of Ms. Stewart at this time? And any questions regarding her request for a deferral as well? All right. There being none, let's move on to the next speaker. The next speaker noted is a Yipping Song. Yipping Song, are you there? You are unmuted, Yipping Song. Hello? Okay, while they're getting their bearings, maybe we can move on to a Raymond Paré. Raymond Paré, are you there?
Sorry, did you just call for Ray Perry?
Maybe it is Perry, but is that how we say it? That's no problem. Mr. Perry, can you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Raymond Perry, and I am at 84 Avondale. I'm the property immediately to the east of 80 Avondale. There's no 82 Avondale.
Okay, thank you. And if you can share your thoughts with us.
Thanks very much. First, I want to support Ms. Stewart's comments, which I think were very well taken, and I'd like to expand on them a bit. I do object to the severance. This notion that it somehow is not going to disrupt the character or the configuration of the lots. Certainly, as Vicky said, there are very few lots that are under 9 meters in this area. The zoning is for 9-meter lots and above, and that's basically 29.5 feet. So it looks like the ruling is basically only houses above 30 feet are allowed. And in reality, most of them are over 35 feet. We've actually walked the length of the block and checked, and one of the members of this neighborhood actually checked all of the frontages on this particular block. We found only 4 were actually below 30 feet. There are 2 25-foot ones on the north side, 1 on the south, and then there's a 27-foot lot. They're all extremely old houses. 2 of the houses are in the 1920s, 2 of them are in the 1950s. So they're way ahead of any of this zoning requirements. So I'd say that it does change the character of the neighborhood. But more importantly, the whole idea of taking and subdividing this is going to have an effect on the neighborhood itself. So you take a property that's 50 feet, you divide it into 225s right away. You've now got twice the number of families living on the same property. You've got twice the number of driveways, twice the number of cars. And so all this has an impact on the neighborhood. And we're already experiencing some of the spillover from those two other developments that Vicky mentioned, that Ms. Stewart mentioned, which are just outside of our zoning area. So it is a big difference. You won't see any of these new developments split in two like this in our area, the way you did in the previous application. The main problem with some of these is just the basics, the practical aspects, not so much the look and feel of them. It's things like trying to clear your snow, trying to ensure that there's a way for the rainwater to get onto the grass. With things like this, you'll see you're going to eliminate a whole bunch of grass in that property, and areas that are now being used to drain out the rainwater and make sure it goes onto grass instead of it to the city sewer system. That's no longer going to be available. Those will now be paved over driveway. And the city has asked us to be very careful to make sure that our downspouts are flooding out onto grass. And so it's going to be very difficult to do that now, especially for my property and for the property part 2 of this application. So we have that concern. We have the concern about snow clearing. Even now you see these properties that are redone where there's all driveway and very little grass. They have no place to put the snow. And we've seen conflicts with that where the new owner hires a company to come in and draw out the snow, and they end up pulling it all out of the driveways, which are now twice the size. And they put it into the street, or they try to pile it onto other people's lawns. So snow, rainfall, all those things are important for the severance, whether or not it makes sense in this neighborhood. And as I say, we don't see anything this tight in our neighborhood. This particular one has 2 city trees in the front yard. Urban Forestry has objected to it on the basis that it would kill or damage both those trees. And I agree with that as being a likely consequence of putting 2 driveways in this property. And both those trees are city trees. They're beautiful trees, and there's nothing wrong with them. We mentioned in my presentation that the owner of this property has already
Mr. Perry,
removed
if I can ask you to summarize, please. Your timing is almost up.
Has already removed all the trees in the backyard. I don't think the city should be giving them the right to damage the 2 trees in the front yard. So that's basically the summary of mine. I had the same concerns as Vicky with respect to the gradient on the driveway, how that's going to work now, and also the distances between the properties. But I'll leave that to other people.
Okay, thank you
Thanks
so
for listening.
much. Thank you for that, and some very good points raised for committee to note that there is a condition number 5 of forestry, which really does state the seriousness of their review of this application. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Perry? Okay, there being none, let's move back on to Yipping Song. Yipping Song, are you there?
Hello.
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 Can you state your
Yeah, I
name
don't
and
have a
address for the
comment.
record, please?
Yeah, actually, I'm at the 88 Avondale, so it's pretty close to Ray, who just mentioned. In general, I don't have much comments. I mostly stay in line with what Ray and Victoria just mentioned.
Sorry, so no additional comments?
Yeah, no further comment.
All right.
I'm relatively new to this this beautiful neighborhood. So as Ray and Victoria just mentioned, I think the generally speaking, to keep this neighborhood in a quiet and peaceful is the most important to the existing residents. We have already noticed there's a few constructions already going on Avondale and the adjacent other, I think, Glenora or even Endon. So it's already giving the existing residents a lot of like the traffic, the noises, etc. Going around, and especially as you probably noticed, there's also like an Avondale, I think it's an elementary school in the neighborhood. So I don't think like a further any of these construction is doing any good to the people around, to the kids. So that's just my thought. For the
All
time
right.
being.
Thank you so much, Mr. Song. Can I just also confirm your address? I don't think that was clear at the beginning.
Oh, 88. So 88 Avondale Ave. So
Okay.
I think it's pretty close to the project mentioned.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Song? There being none, let's then invite Mr. Mehdi Ajvand, the agent, back out. Mr. Ajvand, you've heard a lot of the very impassioned comments by the neighbors, as well as a request and for a deferral so that they would have a lot more time to assess this application. If a deferral were to be noted by committee members, would that be something you could support, or I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that.
Sure. I believe if I give, just the definition or just explanation about the situation, deferral is not required because, first of all, thank you for all the feedback that we received from our neighborhood. Thank you for, their concern. Regarding the deferral, which was related to eliminating two variances that we have. I understand that our neighbor has a concern about having like a below grade garage or those kind of thing, but I wanna assure that it's not the case. The only reason that we are eliminating that variances is because the new definition of zoning bylaw, which is enforced from January 1st, it's about the way that new zoning bylaw define the basement. So the only changes that we have to apply for removing those variances is adding a couple of feet to the basement depth. Nothing gonna be changed on the driveway, nothing gonna be changed on the garage, nothing at all. It's just about the basement depth, which by adding a couple of feet, these two variances are removed. So basically, there won't be any changes on drawing by eliminating these variances. It's just about the basement depth, and it happened because of this, because we submitted this application before new enforcement of the definition in zoning bylaw, and then it reviews after based on the new definition. And it is common. I believe that it's going to be a headache for all committee panel because there is a confusion for everyone about the number of story. But after communicating with the planning department to avoid to propose a precedent for other neighborhood, we agree to eliminate that one, to not call it 3-story and stick to the 2-story. So there won't be any changes on the drawing by eliminating these variances, and I believe that there is no need for deferral. If I want to address all other concerns that I received from our neighborhood, it is, as I said in my first presentation, it is very interesting that in this case, we are not referring to some other severance cases. We are referring to some existing lot. And what I counted on the location plan is 7 lots in Avondale in a less than 120 meter of this property has the same frontage, and I believe that it's a good ground to call it as a character of neighborhood when we have several samples that it is happening, and all those lots are original lots, is not generated even by severance. So that it means that it is common in this area to have this kind of lot frontage. Regarding the urban forestry and also the landscaping, all those kind of concern that my neighbor raised, I want to mention that we don't have any landscaping variance. If I can have the supportive document, if I can have page 4 of supporting document, I prepared a diagram if we wanted to propose single family dwelling as of right on page 4, please. As you can see, this footprint is much more bigger than what we are proposing. And the unique situation that we have in this property is the front property line is further away from the curb cut. As you can see, there are considerable amount of space belong to the city in front of our property. And the challenges that we have over there, which we worked with urban forestry diligently, and I want to bring it up the situation. We have two city-owned trees in front of our property, one 90 centimeter that I showed over there, and there is one a small other one 15 centimeter. Even if that tree was located inside of property, is not protected by the bylaw, because 15 centimeter in private own is not protected. We worked with the urban forestry. If we can have page 5 of supporting document, I can explain it more. On page 5, as you can see, the red mark footprint is as of right footprint that we could do. And after communicating again by urban forestry, we found that if we push back our building and provide more protection area for that great 90 centimeter tree, which is a great asset for these properties and also for the neighborhood, we can have more. Also, we compromise the rear yard depth and propose more landscaping in the front, which I believe is a great asset for the neighborhood as well, which also caused to have more soft landscaping. And we come up with the idea of keeping the existing driveway as it is in the protection of that 90 centimeter tree. If we can have page 3 of page 2 or 3, doesn't matter, page 2 or 3 of supportive document. As you can see, the extent of damage to that 93 is very minor, and as we can get a confirmation from urban forestry at the last page of supportive document that they are okay.
Hi,
So they are okay with this.
Mr. Ajvan, if you can just quickly summarize, we're out of time.
Sure, definitely. I just want to say that, we did all we could do for urban forestry, transportation, and planning department to be able to propose something appropriate for the neighborhood. And we already, by proposing more front setback than required, by keeping the existing driveway as it is, and even protecting that 90 centimeter tree.
Thank you so much. I'll stop you there. If the committee members want to ask more questions, they shall. And I gave you a little extra time only to respond to the deferral question. And so I'll turn it over to committee members if you have any questions of Mr. Ajvan at this time. Okay, there being none, and considering what the neighbors have said, please note that we do have transportation conditions for this. We do have the staff report, for which the agent has eliminated for parts 1 and 2, variances 6 and 7. There are 4 letters of objection on file. Forestry has a condition of number 5 on there. And so and there's also the request for deferral. So you do have the ability to make a decision and discuss amongst yourselves. If you still feel that this should be deferred, you have that as an option. Otherwise, there's an approval or approval with condition or denial. That being said, when you're ready, can I entertain a motion, please? Motion from Member Bartolo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. In reviewing the information here and listening to all of the speakers, I'm inclined to agree with what's been noted in the staff report, and that the requested frontages and lot sizes are minor and very close to what the zoning permits. Therefore, I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application subject to the following conditions: that for both applications, variants 6 and 7 be deleted, that they be subject to the conditions of the urban forestry memo attached, and that they be subject to the recommendation number 1 as noted in the transportation memo attached.
Okay, motion from Member Bartolo to approve this application with those conditions, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Opposed? Oh, so unanimously approved with those conditions. Mr. Ajfand, your application has been approved. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, moving on to application number 3, members. This is number 70, Atibi. Sorry.
Madam Chair, if I may, sorry to interrupt. The applicant has indicated that he had to go to another hearing. So perhaps we can hold this and move on to the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Let's move on from, instead of application number 3, let's move on to application number 4, members. And this is number 87, Citation Drive. And this is an application, a proposal to convert an existing driveway into a circular driveway. There is only one variance that's noted. There's no objection from TRCA. There is a letter from Councillor Carroll from May 11th that expressed concerns that this may not meet the character of the development. But in addition, there are 10 supporting signatures from surrounding neighbors. There's no one else to speak to this application. Members, let me invite Mr. Ali Shakiri to speak to this application. Agent Shakiri, are you there?
Ali Shakiri, 326 Shepard Avenue East. Good morning.
Good morning. Members, do you require a presentation on this application at this time? Okay. There being none, Mr. Shakiri, do you have anything that you'd like to share with the members before they take this into committee for decision making?
Well, we have made a thorough study. We think this is minor. However, we have noticed the letter from the councillor. My client, which is the owner, despite the strong evidence we submitted, he still wishes to defer the case in order to speak this matter with the councillor. And that's his decision. If the panel moves to defer this, I greatly appreciate. Otherwise, I'm ready to present.
Okay, so would you like to, you're asking to defer this so that you can address the councillor's concerns. So that's a request that's coming from the applicant. There's no one else to speak to this application. I'm going to ask committee members, do you have any questions of Member Shakiri? Yes. Sorry, is Member Kidd, are you having a question or a motion?
I do have a quick question, if
Yes.
I may, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Just with respect to the, well, it's the only variance requested. You want a proposed front yard landscaping area of 55.19, but I noticed you've been granted a front yard landscaping of 55% in the previous application for this property in oh, I guess that was in 2011. But can you clear that up for me, please?
Yes, as you noticed, this variance has been granted a number of years ago to the same applicant, actually, same owner. And the reason we have to come here before you is the section number of the bylaw is changed. That was on the previous bylaw, and now we have a new bylaw. At the time, he didn't proceed with his driveway, and now he wishes to do so. That's why we have to come to this hearing, ask for the same variance on the different section.
Did he request a circular driveway? It was the same request?
The request is not for a circular driveway. The circular driveway comes as of right for this property. The request is for the front yard landscaping, which, by the way, is going to help the owner have a better functioning circular driveway. But the circular driveway, as it for it by itself, is not a variance for this case.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Then can I get a motion on this deferral, please? Yes, Member Bartolo, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. A little bit of a freeze there. Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. And with Member Kidd's observation here and like the minor nature of this application, I really don't see a reason to gum up the works and create more administrative burden. I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application.
Okay, a motion to approve this application from Member Bartolo, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Okay. Mr. Shakiri, your application has been unanimously approved.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it.
All right. Moving on, Mr. Shakiri is still joining us, so I don't need you to repeat your name and address. Let's move on to item number 5, which is 200-326 Shepard Avenue East. Members, this is an application to permit an increase in the width of the garage doors of the dwelling currently under construction. Just to note, there's no one else to speak to this application. There's just one variance again. There is a transportation report with some conditions attached. Members, do you need a presentation on this application? There being none, Mr. Shakiri, do you have anything that you'd like to share with committee members before they take this into consideration for a decision?
No, Madam Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Members, do you have any final questions of Mr. Shakiri before you take this into consideration? All right, there being none, can I get a motion on this application? There's a transport report and there's only one variance noted. Okay, Member Kidd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel this is a requested variance is minor in nature, and given the support of the transportation report, I'd like to put forward a motion to accept the application subject to the conditions set out in the Transportation Services Report dated May 1st, 2023.
Okay, thank you for that motion from Member Kidd to approve this application with those conditions, seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? Mr. Shakiri, this application has been unanimously approved by members with those conditions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too. Okay, moving on, members, to item number 6. This is 201 Steeles Avenue East. Please note, members, that there is no one else to speak to this application.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. So item number 6, sorry, item number...
Yes, it's number 6.
Sorry, it wasn't 201 Steeles Avenue. Sorry, I meant to say 148 Empress Avenue.
Yes.
Mr. Hosseini, is that you?
Yes.
Okay, so
Good
if you
morning,
could state
Madam
your
Chair.
name and address, please, for the record.
Yes, Mehdi Hosseini, 201 Steeles Avenue East, Toronto, Ontario.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to double check. Are you making some revisions to this application?
Yes, after the discussion that we had with the planner assigned to this project, and I know that the councillor wasn't happy with the coverage, so we are adjusting the number. Actually, we are removing 2 of the minor variances, number 1 and 2, and we're just gonna have one variance, which is the number 3, as my client, they're wishing to have a bigger space on their current backyard deck, and they want to make it bigger to have more space to enjoy with their family. So we are removing number 1 and 2.
Okay, so variances number 1 and 2 are removed to address the staff report of May 1st.
Yes.
And no other
Yes.
changes. There is just one variance.
Yeah.
Do you have anything that you'd like to share with committee members before they take this into consideration?
Yeah, I just want to explain why they're looking to expand this deck in the backyard. The reason for it is they have parents that they're living with them. They have an elevator inside the house, but for them to go to the backyard is really difficult. So they want to have a bigger space to use that. And as you know, this house, they have a deck which is 2.32 meters above the ground. So it has 13 risers of stairs to get to the backyard from the deck. So that's why they wanted to have this expansion in the way to enjoy the backyard more. If there is any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Hosseini? Please note that he has removed variances 1 and 2 to address the staff report. There's only 1 variance left and no one else to speak to this application. Any questions? Seeing that there are no questions, can we get a motion, please? Motion from Member Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to move approval of this application, noting that variance 1 with respect to the rear deck side yard setback has been removed. And also variance 2 has been removed, which is the proposed lot coverage. I would move acceptance of this application.
Okay, motion from Member Hunt to approve with those conditions, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Unanimously approved. Mr. Hosseini, your application has been approved with those conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. Moving on to item number,
Yeah, if I may, Madam Chair. So it's the same applicant from item number 3. He's still not present, so we can hold 3, 7, and 8 for now until he returns.
okay,
Yeah.
so it is the same applicant for number 3, 7, and 8.
Correct.
And he's on at another hearing, and we will hear from him. We'll stand those down until he gets back. So let's move on then, members, to item number 9. Item number 9 is number 1, Proctor Crescent. And let me just move along here. So number 1, Proctor Crescent, is to construct a cabana in the rear yard. Please note, members, that there are 2 variances on here, and there is a staff report of April 26th asking to refuse variance number 1. There is 1 letter of objection, and there is someone noted here to speak to this application. Let's bring out the agent, Mr. Han Zhu. Mr. Zhu, are you there?
Hi, good morning, Chair.
If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Han. Address is 40 Volgo Road, Richmond Hill. I am representing the owners of 1 Proctor Crescent or 20 Rothmere Drive, depending on the city address.
Okay. Are you making any revisions to this report in light of the staff report?
No, not currently. We've spoken to the staff reports already, and they understand the situation. So we won't be making any changes currently.
Okay. So then, because we have someone else to speak to this item, can you provide the panel with a brief presentation of the merits of your application?
Sure, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, we're asking for a relief with regards to the rear yard landscaping as well as a maximum lot coverage. The rear yard landscaping allowance for the property is 50%, and the current proposal for soft landscaped area will be 38%. I just wanted to note, as well as in the rear yard, the total interlocking plus the cabana as well as the court space addresses to about 53%, so leaving about 46.58% of area left. I know I have a supporting document. If you can go to page 2, it sort of gives it more clarity as to the rear. It's a different PDF, sorry, supporting doc. Is it possible to pull up the other PDF? No? Okay. Well, with regards to the variances for lot coverage as well, I just wanted to clarify that the zoning for RD asks for a maximum lot coverage of 35%. The requested coverage is 41.73, but this is primarily due to the principal building being 38%, which is currently over the maximum coverage as well. So the cabana in question is 3.73%. In accordance with the zoning bylaws, it asks for auxiliary buildings to be defined as a auxiliary used in conjunction with the dwelling unit and not used as living accommodations. The area height and setback for auxiliary buildings is to reduce the massing and disturbance on the adjacent properties. So by the zoning bylaws, it asks for a maximum coverage of 10%, a setback of 0.3 meters, and a maximum height of 4 meters. So the proposed cabana we are asking for, which is 3.73 in conjunction with the 10% maximum. The height will be 3 meters, whereas the maximum allowed is 4 meters, and the proposed setback will be 0.3, same as the zoning bylaws. So in terms of conforming to the general intent, I believe that we are well within the recommended sizing in terms of reducing the massing and disturbance on the adjacent properties. As well, with comments from the city, what's main intent of the bylaws for landscaping is to provide adequate natural stormwater management by controlling the amount of stormwater runoff to the adjacent properties. So as you can see in the current slide, the rear yard is designed with planters and green spaces along the perimeters of the rear yard, controlling the stormwater on the property itself, as well as majority of the green space is towards the north side of the property as well. On the south side of the property, which is the court space, this is a perforated sporting tiles with drainage underneath as well, which also helps to mitigate the stormwater on the property. And this is being redirected through the sides of the property towards the soil spaces along the city streets on Rothmere Drive. With regards to our percentage, why we're at 38%, it's mainly because of the wash stations, the staircases, as well as the exit stairs from the basement. So all these have their own separate drainage, which is drained directly into the housing. So as I mentioned before, if we're only solely talking about interlocked spaces, as well as cabana and the basketball court, hard surfaces only amount to about 53%, which is leaves 46.58% of green spaces or naturally vented for stormwater towards the inside of the building. And just to go with the priority, in accordance with the official plans for the neighborhoods, it mainly regards with the prevailing heights, massing, density, scaling of the properties, as well as the setbacks.
I'll ask you
and the
to
streets.
summarize, please. Your time is coming to an end.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to mainly say that we are not impacted on the street level. So if you go to the following slides, you can see that majority of our views from the streets are being maintained. It is not viewable from the outside, as well as we've taken extra precautions to make the rear yard more attractive by doing additional decorative features on the cabana itself as well from second-story views. And if you look at the area view for the immediate neighborhoods, you can see that the neighborhood's undergoing a lot of developments, with the red dots indicating previous variances for landscaping.
Okay, sorry, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Hanzu? Yes, Member Manning, go ahead.
Two questions. What's the size of the basketball court, and how effective is the perforated drainage tiles?
So the drainage tiles run along the perimeter of the property as well as the perimeter of the basketball court. The basketball court itself is 36 square meters.
Okay, so it's only the outside of the basketball court that's
the perimeter of the basketball court and the perimeter of the rear yard.
Okay.
Great. Member Bartolo, I saw your hand up as well. Did you still have a question? Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I do, Madam Chair. Two items. One, is it already built? And second, I was trying to follow your math as you were explaining along, noting that your correct me if I'm wrong, you said your landscaping is actually 46%, which is closer to the 50, but the zoning examiner's assessment is 38%. So I'm wondering how we got the discrepancy between those two items.
So just for clarity's sake, the amount of green space, so in terms of grass, shrubs, bushes, trees, and these type of areas is the 38%, 38.03% as per the requested variance. My recommendation for the 46.58% in terms of natural mitigation for the stormwater in terms of the general intent of the landscaping bylaw is because it asks for natural drainage. So a lot of this, because of the way that the landscaping is calculated, the basement walkout, as well as the fountain pad and stuff like this, is counted as hard space, but it does have its own separate drainage system, which doesn't really increase the load of stormwater for the property.
Does that answer your question, Member Bartolo?
It does, but if it's piped internally, it does increase the stormwater load for the building. Right? I'm not really here to argue semantics. Either it's naturally drained or it's piped away into the system, right? And the first question, like, did they go ahead and already build this?
Yes, so it was built. They weren't aware that the owners, when they built it, they weren't aware the permit was required. So at the later fact, once it's been brought to their attention, we submitted a building permit, did the calculations, and found out that there are variances that are required, and therefore we'll make the application.
Okay, so this has already been built.
Correct.
Members, do you have any other questions? And we do note that when we make a decision, whether it's built or not, that should not be taken into consideration. It's what's before you. That being said, we do have a letter of objection, and that person is listed to speak. That was a letter of objection that came in from a Sherry Dorsey. And so I've got on the line a Jeff McCann and a Sherry Dorsey. Are you there?
I am. It's
Yes.
Jeff McCann. I'm Sherry Dorsey's husband.
Yes.
I live at 24 Rothmere Drive. Our property is directly east, abuts to 1 Proctor. And correct, it is built. And I do challenge some of the things that I just heard, but I'd like to point our points. First is it seems that the concrete coverage, which is 1 foot higher than what the lot was previously. When this home was built in 2010, 2011, the city ordered them to put in drainage to stop flooding coming into our property, into our window wells, and to our front and side lawn. This new construction of the cabana and sports court, they tore that drainage out. We did speak to the owners and to the contractor that we did have concerns about this, and we thought by adding a simple French drain may correct it. They simply ignored us and proceeded. So the drainage, what we've witnessed, and do have pictures that shows it's only done around the perimeter of the court. The drainage is eaves troughs running the distance from the rear of the property to the front of the city, and that water is going directly onto Rothmere Avenue and is causing erosion, and during the cold months is causing slippery. So it's danger. So the court itself seems to be well in excess of 50% of the backyard, closer to 85%. I do not really witness any green back there from our upper windows. Our lower windows are basically blocked out now for sunlight because the cabana has been built almost on the property line. It's literally inches away from it. And it's of extremely poor quality. It's just typical wafer board at the back. It's going to rot in no time. And the fence that they put around the property starts at about 6 feet at the front of the property or towards Rothmere and accelerates to 8 feet towards the rear of their property where it abuts ours. Furthermore, is that no one was ever approached. We were not approached by the owners of 1 Proctor on what their plans were, nor were their neighbors. We were well aware that they were working without a permit. We tried to work through this with them, and to no avail. So that's when we contacted the city to inform them that we have concerns, mostly about the drainage of water coming onto our property. And we sent you pictures and a video link showing that. So we have grave concerns about that. And I've also contacted our local council person, Jay Robinson, about the situation. So to me, the whole situation seems that they took a disregard for the proper manners to apply for a permit. They're now applying for a permit because, in my opinion, they were forced to do this. So it was disrespect for the process. If one was to come by and take a look at the fence, what it looks like, and what the structure looks like, which seems to be about 16 feet by 16 feet. Height, I can't tell because I can't go on their property. It is an eyesore. It does cause lighting issues into our home, but most of all, the drainage. So by adding this 1 foot concrete pad has increased their lot level or height by another foot. So the drainage has been, it has been an issue and will continue. I don't think this is right. And I think whatever needs to be adjusted should be addressed is only fair.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions of the area resident? Okay, there being none, then I'll invite Mr. Zhu to come back on and, respond to the neighbor's letter of objection and what you've heard here today as well.
Yes, hi there. So yeah, I just wanted to clarify this. Sorry. So the situation, I know it's not ideal as it is already constructed. Therefore, I did not mention in terms of this because it doesn't play a factor into it, the situation. I do want to know that I believe, to my best of my knowledge, all the neighbors were informed of the construction prior to them, just to, as a courtesy to notify any work done on the properties. As a result, the adjacent neighbors as well as the surrounding neighbors did sign letters of support for the variances, and then that, everything's done is appealing to the neighborhood. So with regards to limiting the stormwater runoff, like I mentioned, extra precautions were done. The perimeter of the property, like I said, has the green spaces to try to mitigate as much of the rainwater as possible. I do notice that they mentioned with regards to erosions on the street, but I do want to mention for clarity's sake, the erosion point is at the side of the property. If you go down to the next slide, you can see that the erosion point is at one more. The erosion point, you can see where the pine cones are. One up one. So if you see at the, you can go one more slide to the side of the property from the outside where the pylons are. It is at the side of the property. The entire, the adjacent member mentioned that the slope for the entire area slopes from west to east. So any drainage that would have occurred from the renovations, construction at the rear yard would not have affected the erosion point. That would have been done something prior because the drainage would not have backflowed uphill.
Okay, do you have any other
that was the main thing.
comments?
Thank you.
Okay, so members, having heard what the area residents have said in objection, you've heard the response from the agent. You know that there's a couple of variances. There is a staff report asking for refusal of variance number 1. Can I get a motion? Yes, Member Manning, go ahead, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, I've listened to the neighbors as well as the applicant's submissions. I'd like to make a motion to refuse this application. I don't think it's unfortunate that this is already built, but I don't think it's minor in nature or desirable. And I don't think it's in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. So I'd have to agree with the staff report.
Thank you, Member Manning. With a motion to refuse this application, seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? Right, this application has been unanimously refused. Thank you. All right, moving on, then to, we still are waiting.
Madam Chair, if I may?
Yes?
The applicant for items 3, 7, and 8 has returned.
All right, great. Let's move back to item number 3, members. And item number 3 is number 70, ABITIBI Avenue. Let's move on there and bring out Agent Jonathan Benskowski. Mr. Benskowski, are you there?
I'm here, Madam Chair. I really want to apologize to staff as well as the committee. I was in the middle of an Etobicoke hearing, and
you're a busy guy.
I really apologize. I really apologize. I'm sorry for that.
That's all right. Apology accepted, and we stood your item down until you can return. Members, if I can just share with you, this application is an application for to construct a new dwelling. There is a staff report of May 1st asking for some modifications, and there's some revisions that I'm thinking, Mr. Benskowski, you would like to make. Is that true?
Absolutely, Madam Chair.
Okay, if you can go ahead and state the variance number and what changes you're making.
Yeah, we will be removing variance number 1, which relates to the rear platform, which is the planning memo, which addresses that planning memo concern.
Okay, so variance number 1 removed. Any other changes?
That's it, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right. So now you've been reduced to 3 variances as opposed to 4. There is someone to speak to this item. So if you can give the panel members a brief presentation on the merits of your application, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, if we could bring up the site plan, please. What we have here is an application for a new dwelling. This new dwelling has been appropriated on the site in a matter that is only requesting a variance for a reduction in a side yard setback. If we see here, the proposed dwelling in the middle is actually essentially built in line with the house to the west at building number 68 and is significantly behind number 72 to the east. With the reduction and the elimination of variance number 1 that relates to the deck, in my opinion, any overlook concern is mitigated by that reduction with that deck being smaller in size and really not being somewhere where somebody can congregate on. The only request for an increase is for the side main wall height, which again, if we relate this back to the site plan here, that side main wall height, again, is appropriated between the house and number 68 to the west. Again, does not extend further into their backyard, causing any impact, and is built behind the house to the east at number 72, again, with no impact into the rear yard. In my opinion, this is pretty much a straightforward, typical new dwelling application, again, in North York, in and around the city, with an integral garage and 2 floors of living above it. And I guess I'll wait to hear the concerns of the neighbor before I address anything else.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I also apologize to the neighbor for not being here as well.
Okay, noted. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Benskowski? There being none, let's move on to the area resident, Yi Si Huang. It's from the same household, either a Yi Si Huang, Chan Chu Lo, or Jane Huang. Is anyone from that household here representing? Yes?
Yes, hi. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Miss Jane Huang, is that you?
Yes, we are the neighbor that's right next to the 70 ABITIBI. So I guess we just want to make sure that those the proposal changes or the request is minor. But how minor is that? Because I actually didn't know the presentation is conducting right now. I was in a meeting earlier, but I thought the presentation is going to be, the presenter is going to be going to other hearings, so I went out. Yeah, so that's why I got on here, and just to see how exactly is the minor, how minor request is, how minor is this request, and how we're being affected.
Okay, not a problem. We can get the agent to describe in his view why this meets one of those 4 tests as being minor. Is there any other
Right.
comments you've got before we move on?
No, I guess I just want to say, especially regarding to the letter we received, it says, chapter 3 or 3 chapter, the minimum required side yard setback is 1.2 meters, or they just say chapter 2. All this is just, and I guess there's also the west side that is affecting us. So yeah, I just want to know how exactly is that affecting us, by how much, and how, what's the degree, and are we required to change our fence? That I don't know.
Okay, those are all good points. And members, do you have any questions of Ms. Huang from this household? There being none, Mr. Benskowski, if you can come back onto the line, and you've heard what the residents next door at 72 ABITIBI have indicated, and concerns around, if you can explain and express why this is minor. And then variance number 3 seems to be the one that affects them on the west side yard setback. How does that impact upon them, and if they're going to need to change their fence? Can you respond to those concerns?
Yes, Madam Chair. In my opinion, really, the definition of whether it is minor or not really comes back to impact, and how that impact relates of an adverse planning nature, and how that might affect both the immediate neighborhood, meaning the adjacent neighbors, the overall neighborhood, as well as the streetscape. When we look at it in terms of this application itself, that reduction in the west side yard setback is for a modest 0.3 meters. In terms of access, and when we examine the intent and purpose of that side yard setback, really is for a harmonious streetscape, as well as to permit access into the rear yards. 3 feet is more than enough room to have access into the rear yards. In terms of the fence, I'm assuming any damage or any issue that would occur during the fence would be a private matter between the homeowner and the individual who just spoke. Again, this would be a new dwelling that would be constructed. The intent would be to have a fence between the 2 dwellings. In terms of that impact and how we arrive at it being minor, we look at where the building is appropriated on the lot, and how it relates to those adjacent dwellings to the east and the west. As I spoke previously, that building length is essentially in line with that house to the west at number 68, and is built significantly behind the dwelling at number 72. So any issue in terms of massing, as it would be felt in the rear yard from the increase in the main wall height, would be mitigated by the fact that it doesn't extend into the rear amenity space. I hope that answers the question, and any other questions the committee has, I'm here to answer.
Okay, thank you for that. Committee members, any final questions of the agent? Okay, there being none, you've got the modifications that the agent has made here today addressing the staff report. It's now 3 variances that are there. No other conditions. Member Manning with a motion.
Through you, Madam Chair, I accept the applicant's submissions and agree with the staff report that removal of variance number 1. With that, I'd like to approve the application.
Okay, motion from Member Manning to approve this application with the those modifications by the applicant here today, seconded by Member Hunt. Seconds this application. All those in favor? Mr. Benskowski, this application has been unanimously approved with those conditions.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. And then now, because you're on the line, let's move on to your next item, which was stood down, and that's item number 7, which is number 70 Laird Drive. Members, if you can go to item number 7. And this is an item, this application is to construct a 2-story rear addition to the existing addition, the existing dwelling. And this has 10 variances, members. There's no comments from Heritage. There is a transportation report that came in for May 1st, and they approve, but they did have some conditions that were attached. There is no one else to speak to this application. Members, do you require a presentation? Okay, there being none noted. Mr. Benskowski, if you would like to share anything with the panel members before they take this into committee for deliberation.
Very briefly, 68 and 70 is a semi-detached building with rights-of-ways both on the north and the south, which is partly driving the reduction in the soft landscaping. Other than that, it's a very unique lot. And really that's what's driving the variances. Most of the variances are actually internal to the two properties in terms of the setbacks as it relates to the semi-detached dwellings. And again, to the rear of this is an apartment building located on Kenray. And I think it fits the streetscape, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Members, any questions before we take this into committee for deliberation? If not, can I get a motion, please? Noting that there's 10 variances, no comments from Heritage, and a transport report. Member Manning with a motion.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application.
And subject to, there are some conditions of transport.
Subject to the conditions of transport.
All right. Member Manning with a motion to approve this application subject to transportation. Is there anyone to second this motion? Seconded by Member Bartolo. All those in favor? Okay, unanimously approved with those conditions. Mr. Benskowski, number 70 Laird Drive has been approved with those conditions. And then finally, we will keep you on for number 68 Laird Drive, which is very similar to number 70 Laird Drive. There's no one to talk to this application. It is 12 variances. There are forestry conditions, noting that there is a forestry condition number 5. No comments from Heritage again. Members, do you need a presentation on this application as well? There being none, Member Agent Benskowski, do you have anything to share with the membership before they take this into committee for decision making?
I don't, Madam Chair.
Okay. So members, this is similar to the last one. Member Kidd, is that a motion or a question?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, if I could, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I noticed the urban forestry is asking us to deny variance number 9 because of a healthy owned, privately owned tree. Could you just give us some background on your discussion with urban forestry with regard to that tree?
That is a private tree located in the rear yard. We didn't, through you, Madam Chair, didn't really have much discussion with them, Mr. Kidd. This is a highly constrained site because of the rear angle at the back. We actually had extensive discussions with planning regarding other proposals that wouldn't have worked based upon angular planes and how it would relate to the rear. So really, in terms of developing of the site to offer multi-units, this was really the only option we had, based especially with number 68 having the angled rear lot line. It really chokes development on this site. So we didn't really have discussions because, again, it was a private tree. And again, we'd be happy to plant or pay cash in lieu if you would choose to make that a condition of approval.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. And it is subject to forestry, so you would have to maintain the requests of forestry as a result, or work that out with them as needed. Members, if there are no other questions, can I get a motion? Motion from Member Kidd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to put forward a motion to accept the application, and I make that subject to forestry conditions number 2 and 5, and also subject to the conditions set out in the transportation report dated May 1st, 2023.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Member Kidd with a motion to approve this application with those conditions, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? And your application has been unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Members, we could do a break, or we could do one more item, number 10. It's up to you, but I'm thinking, do the staff need a break here right now? It's up to you if we could do one more and then break. We're almost halfway. That would be our halfway mark. Okay, we'll just do one more, and then we'll take a 10 or 15-minute break of your choice. Let's move on to item number 10, and this is 397 Elm Street. 397 Elm Street is an application to proposal to construct a new single-family dwelling with an integral garage. Please note, members, that there's 5 variances on here. We've got 3 letters of support, but there are 2 letters of objection. No other staff reports noted for this. There is someone to speak to the application, so let me invite the agent, Shadi Arani. Shadi Arani, are you there?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm here. My name is Shadi Arani from 685 Shepard Avenue East.
Thank you. If you could provide us with a brief presentation of your the merits of your application, as we do have someone else to speak to this, and then we can hear what committee thinks.
Absolutely. But before I begin, I wanted to mention that we had 2 letters of objection. I met with both neighbors and provided sufficient information. To the best of my knowledge, they both revoked their objections, and they were removed from the portal. I will go briefly over the variances. If I may ask, if I may request for the supporting document to be uploaded so I can go over that, which shows the variances.
Okay, that is coming up. Why don't you continue and begin your presentation regardless?
For sure. So with regards to the front yard setback, the north side neighbor just got their building permit and will begin construction, I believe, within the next couple of weeks. So the existing neighboring house on the north has a setback of 8.44, which is shown on the diagram, while the proposed house will have a setback of 5.7 meters. So our proposed setback, which at the moment is a variance, is based on the calculation of the zoning bylaw when the neighboring house is built. So basically, once they start construction, then this setback would not exist. So the orange dashed line and the orange dimension is the existing house. The green house on the north side is the proposed house. So if we take the measurements based on the proposed house, that is the setback that we will have, which is 5.36 meters, which would allow us to be in keeping with both side neighbors. Otherwise, the proposed building will be setting back far further from both neighbors. And if you don't mind, if you can move to the next slide, please. So this one, so diagram B, it shows the height of the building in relation to the neighboring buildings, and it shows that in terms of height and massing, it is aligned with the neighboring properties. Two of the variances are basically height of the main walls on both sides. So although this is a flat roof, it sits still shorter than both neighbors. Again, I just want to clarify that the neighbor on this diagram on the left side, the property is not built yet. They have got the building permit. So if you may, please go to the next slide. So this diagram shows the building, if the building had a sloped roof with not with a steep slope, but with just an average slope, following the bylaw height and also bylaw height of main wall. And as you can see, the massing would have been far larger than what it is now proposed. And there are two small portions, basically two tiny edges on each side that are highlighted in green that are now sticking out from the slope roof if this building was slope-proof versus the current proposal. If you may please go to the next diagram. To the next page, please. This page shows property nearby with lot coverage over 38 and 39%, which is part of the massing and character of the homes in the neighborhood. And I just want to mention that the proposed footprint follows all required setbacks with the exception of the front yard setback that I mentioned. So we are following all the side yard setbacks. We are following the required length and depth. And in fact, we are actually below the required length and depth. So this is the size is appropriate for the size of the lot. And with regards to the height of the main pedestrian entrance, lastly, it is only 0.2 meters above what the bylaw requires, which is minor and due to the size of smaller lots in the neighborhood, quite common in this neighborhood. And because of the way the grading is on this lot, if you refer to the second diagram, you'll see that the main entrance, it looks like it will have the same number of steps or even less than the neighboring adjacent properties that are shown on the images. And we made all the effort to reach out to all the neighbors. If they had any objections or concerns, we met with them and we described the project. And support letters were uploaded. And that's pretty much it. I would be happy to answer any question that the committee members have.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of Ms. Arani? Okay, there being none, then let's move on to the next speaker that's noted. It's a James Folliot. Mr. Folliot, are you there?
Madam Chair, I believe James is one of the neighbors that rescinded their letter.
Okay.
He's not online and we tried to reach out to him.
Right.
And went to voicemail, so.
Okay, there we go. And we've got the letter on there. That was a letter of objection that is now withdrawn. And so they've withdrawn their ability to be present for this hearing as well, because as indicated, Ms. Arani has met with them and cleared their objections, which is a good effort made. Okay, that being said, Ms. Arani, is there anything else you'd like to tell committee members before they take this into deliberation? And committee members, any questions, you feel free to let me know. Ms. Arani, go ahead. Anything?
Not unless committee members have a question.
All right. Any final questions, committee members? If not, can I get a motion, please? Member Bartolo, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you, in listening to the applicant's presentation here this morning. I'm inclined to agree that it fits in with the character of the neighborhood and the heights are appropriate given the flanking neighbors and the other homes in the neighborhood. I'm going to put forward an application or a motion to approve this application.
Okay. Motion from Member Bartolo to approve this application without any condition, and seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? Agent Arani, your application has been unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Members, let's take 10
Thank you so
minutes.
much, Madam Chair.
Yeah, let's take a 10 minutes break if you can and come back here at 12:27 p.m. Thank you. I'll invite members to come back. And let's get started with item number 11 this time, and this is number 25 Taunton Road. Taunton Road, this is a proposal to construct a new dwelling. Members, there are 4 variances on this item, and there's forestry conditions, there's 17 letters of support. There is 1 letter of objection, and there was a response letter from the developer on this letter of objection. Transportation also has a May 2nd report with conditions. And there are a couple of members to speak to this application in the area. Can I get a Martin Schum, please? Martin Schum, are you there?
I am.
Yeah, Mr. Schum, if you can state your name and address for our records.
Yeah, I'm Martin Schum, the architect for the proposed new home. My office is located at 542 Mount Pleasant Road.
Okay. Thank you so much. And please provide us with a presentation as to the merits of your application.
Okay, I'm wondering if we can move to the site plan in the package. Oh, that would be fine. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, I guess now. Proposed is a 2-story, 4-bedroom detached house with pad parking in the front yard, replacing the existing 2-story, 3-bedroom detached house, also with pad parking in the front yard. There are 4 variances being requested for the proposed home. In regard to variance number 1, the roof eave, this is very minor, and we have explained this in our brief. We've in fact increased the setback of the north wall of the proposed house by 5 inches, increasing the walkway space between the 2 houses to get as close as possible to the bylaw. In regard to variance number 2, which is the maximum building depth, if we can move to the photographs, that would be it's in a different set of photographs. I'm sorry. It's a different file that we had submitted. It would be your supporting material, May 4th, 0.87 megabytes. That would be it. Thank you. The existing, as you can see from the photo, the existing neighborhood neighboring properties are significantly deeper than the existing house. Proposes that the first and second floors of the new house are 17.34 meters in depth, aligning with the rear wall of the southerly neighbor, which would be number 23. That is the shallower adjacent neighbor. This is a minimal increase of 13 inches or 0.34 meters with respect to the bylaw. In fact, only the basement portion extends the additional 7'9" or 2.37 meters and has been aligned just short of the northerly neighbor. Note that the proposed basement protrusion is only partially above grade and will have no impact on the northerly neighbor at 27 Taunton. If we can go down to picture number 3, please. Okay, thank you. This view is of the side wall of 27 Taunton, the northerly neighbor. The full 2-story sidewall of 27 Taunton exceeds the bylaw even further than what we are requesting. It is actually 19.96 meters, exceeding the bylaw by over 9.9. Our main rear wall of the first and second floors, as indicated by the dashed green line, shows where the rear wall of the essentially above grade portion of the house would be. So it is quite clear that there would be no real impact of our house relative to the rear windows of number 27 Taunton. Our design offsets the basement portion further from the north property line to permit the existing fence line retaining wall, which you can see in the picture, and the neighbor's deck to remain in place and maintain their access to the rear of their property, which is unchanged, contrary to the concerns raised in the 2 letters of objection filed by 27 Taunton. In regard to variance number 3, the FSI, we're increasing the FSI by only 2%. In regard to variance number 4, parking, we can scroll down a little further. The required minimum number of parking spaces, the proposal has 0 spaces. This is a technicality. The existing house to be demolished has a single pad parking spot in the front yard, which is typical of the neighboring properties and the neighborhood. These are legal non-conforming pads. Proposes just to reinstate the existing parking pad in the front yard. There is no other option for parking, and it's, again, a technicality. In regard to transportation services report, the report seems to disregard the fact that this was a pre-existing legal non-conforming pad, and instead are treating this as if a new parking spot is being requested where no spot existed before. As a result, some of their conditions in the report are onerous. They require that we file for a front yard parking license and then indicate that we may or may not be approved. Given that the existing house and virtually all the neighbors have parking pads that encroach into the boulevard, this isn't reasonable. Front yard parking license process requires that the neighborhood be polled and neighbors would have a say in something that really should be a non-issue. We would ask that the committee overrule their request and not attach their requirements to the decision. As stated earlier, we have provided 17 letters of support. The sole opposition is the northerly neighbor at 27 Taunton, who has provided 2 letters
Okay,
of
I'll ask you
opposition.
to please summarize.
Okay, their primary concerns seem to be boundary and encroachment issues, which have nothing to do with requested variances and are not part of the Committee of Adjustments purview.
Okay, thank you so much. And if the committee members do have questions, they'll certainly ask. Members, do you have any questions to ask of the agent here today? Okay, if none at this time, let's move on to the first area resident who wishes to speak to this application. Do we have a Naomi Wenger and Nick Sacchetti in the same household? Yes?
Can you unmute Nick Sacchetti?
I can hear you. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record.
Sorry. Can you unmute Nick Sacchetti?
Nick Sacchetti is calling in on a different number, or is it the same number?
For me?
Oh, yeah.
There we go. Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nick Sacchetti. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and my wife, Naomi Wenger. We're at 27 Taunton Road, the northern direct neighbor right next door to 25 Taunton Road. Our goal here today is to provide some context so that the committee has enough information to make a decision. In 2020, we purchased 27 Taunton Road, the neighboring property to the subject lands. Following the purchase of the property, we learned that the previous owner of our property and the previous owners of 25 Taunton Road had entered into a boundary and encroachment agreement respecting the subject lands. This agreement was not registered against title to either property and has not been disclosed in the context of the applicant's submissions and support of the proposal. Following the applicant's purchase of 25 Taunton Road, we were advised that the deck in our backyard would need to be removed. The parties discussed the possibility of reaching a resolution without success, as we were not prepared to support proposed variances in advance of seeing plans. There's a email correspondence provided by the applicants, which is a final email in a long trail where we discuss possible compromises to moving our deck. But we ultimately had no choice but to agree to move the deck at the applicant's request. And so the boundary and encroachment agreement asserts that the existing fence, which runs between the properties to the rear of the subject lands, establishes an encroachment upon 25 Taunton Road, which is permitted to remain until such time as the fence is removed. Once the existing fence is removed, any subsequent fence installed will be constructed along the property line, decreasing our land in size. The applicants request a variance such that the building depth of the new dwelling will increase from 17 meters to 19.71 meters. This variance, if approved, will require demolition of the existing fence. Additionally, the proposed depth increase will A, elongate the walkway between the properties, and B, narrow the walkway between the properties such that the walkway will be inaccessible as a means of entering the backyard from the front of our home, as this is the only access to our backyard since we live in a semi-detached home. The photo on the next slide there It shows the front of the two homes looking towards the back and shows the narrow walkway. And then the next two photos on the next slide show from the rear of the home looking forward the narrow walkway that currently exists with the existing fence line. Please bear in mind that fence line will need to move to the right a foot when you're looking at these photos. So if we move to the next slide with the site plan, in review, this plan doesn't show that the existing fence will need to be demolished upon construction of the new dwelling. However, the applicants have made it clear to us on many occasions that they intend to correct the fence and move it to the lot line. If that happens at its narrowest point, the access will be 0.44 meters, which is less than 18 inches. This is not adequate space for an average size adult to move easily through the walkway, let alone hold anything like a bike or a lawnmower. So the current proposal will substantially impact the marketability of our property having regard to the new property line, the narrow walkway impeding access to the backyard from the front of the home, the decrease in backyard space, impede our reasonable enjoyment of our home and lands, and be the direct cause of incurring costs associated with the current deck and replacement, including permit fees. It is not simply about the depth of the proposed dwelling, but the impact the depth has on our lands. The letters of support submitted in response to the application appear to be from community residents not directly impacted by the construction of the new dwelling, i.e. not neighboring properties to the subject lands. We want to work with the applicants regarding their new dwelling. Had the plans been provided to us prior to them being submitted to the committee for review, perhaps we could have addressed these concerns and mitigated the situation. Because the plans were not shared with us prior to submission, this is the forum we now need to raise our concerns. Further submissions in respect to the official plan and zoning bylaw are contained within the letter of objection. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Very good presentation. Members, do you have any questions of this area resident, Mr. Sacchetti, and his wife? Okay, there being none, let's then move on to the next speaker, and that's Jeremy Lum-Danson. Mr. Lum-Danson, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, and if you can state your name and address for the records.
My name is Jeremy Lum-Danson. My current address is 550 Front Street West. We have recently purchased 23 Taunton, which is the southern neighbor. And I don't necessarily object, but I was driving past the house a few days ago and I saw this notice, and that was the first time I knew that this was happening in our next door to our house, which will be closing on in July 17th. I didn't know anything about the project until today. I don't know, our lawyer hasn't even searched the title yet, so I don't know if there's any sort of agreements. I don't know if there's any issues like the neighbors to the north are facing. So I don't object per se, but I just have enough information at this time to know if this will impact our property in any negative ways. So I want to make that clear. I'm not formally objecting, but I'm also just hearing this for the first time. As well, we are directly beside the neighbors, so we probably will be more impacted than maybe the other 17 letters of support. I understand that there will be some inconvenience, and I'm okay with that. I'm not against people rebuilding their houses, but this is the first time learning about it, and our lawyer hasn't searched title, so we just don't know if there are any issues that could arise, much like our northerly neighbors. If the architect could maybe respond and let us know, is the fence coming down on the north side? Are these issues, are there any foreseeable issues that we don't know about? Because, the sellers weren't obligated to tell us about this, but clearly they knew and didn't tell us. So we're just hearing this now. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And usually they would try to reach out to the actual area residents physically within the area and serving certain notices there. So likely it may not have been received by you from the Front Street address. But nonetheless, Mr. Martin Schum here is the representative that you can absolutely get in touch with. And with respect to that, perhaps we'll hear from him if there's anything else that he can suggest to you in terms of addressing the concerns around the fencing. In the meantime, members, do you have any questions of this applicant? I mean, the neighbor, Mr. Lum-Danson. Okay, there being none, let's move it back over then to the agent, Mr. Schum. If I can invite you back on to speak to this.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we go to supporting document from May 10th, which was the, I guess it has the 0.18 megabyte size for reference. Thank you. Oh, that was the one. No, that's the one. Yes, thank you. I wonder if you can blow it up a little bit, please. In response to the owner of 27 Taunton, unfortunately, we had tried to clarify this with them in our rebuttal letter. They were approached by my client to review the package, and they had indicated they wanted to look at it themselves, and any questions that my client had indicated, any questions they had, they would be happy to answer. In fact, they are factually incorrect. If you look at the drawing here, which is a blow up of the north property line towards the rear, and essentially the back wall of the second floor of the house, which is more indicative of what would be seen. The dashed line indicates where the existing fence line is, and that portion of the fence line where the addition is would be removed, and it would start again at the back of the house. The solid lines that run, as you can see in the blue note, the solid lines running toward that indicate the existing fence line are not being moved. The existing retaining wall in this proposal is not being moved. Their deck is not being impacted. The discussions of the boundary and any encroachments are separate from issues related to the committee, but this application, as it has been received, changes nothing along the common lot line. The walkway space between the two houses has in fact increased by 5 inches, as I noted earlier, but there are no variances related to the north property line. So they are in fact factually correct. It's unfortunate they didn't understand the drawings, and we would have been happy to explain it to them. So their concerns about impact, access, loss of use, loss of any number of things is really not well-founded. And again, the boundary issue is a separate issue that the committee does not deal with and would be dealt with at another point in time potentially. But in terms of this proposal, it's not salient. Now, in terms of the neighbor to the south, we only became aware that the property to the south was sold, I believe, in the last week or so. So there isn't an opportunity to even reach out and have a conversation with them. In fact, the back wall of, if we go back to the earlier pictures that were shown, the house itself is being extended to the rear and only to the very back wall of the neighboring house. If you go to picture number maybe 4 or 5, you can scroll down one more. Actually, 2. There. Yes. So the rear extension of our house would essentially align with the rear of their house, and the fence as such would be unaffected. We don't have access to. They don't use this side for access to their backyard. We've actually even canted the south wall of our house to ensure that we have enough access to get into our backyard, because we're not encroaching into their portion of the lot, which is fairly nominal at that point. So we believe we've actually addressed the concerns of the neighbor to the north, and that many of their concerns are just really not based on reality, and we feel badly that they didn't quite understand it, and again would have been happy to explain it to them in person. And once again, I reiterate that the requested variances are all minor in nature. We've gone out of our way to be accommodating and sensitive to both the south and north neighbor, when other additions would often go far beyond. We haven't done that. We've set ourselves well back. It's quite obvious that currently we are the sort of low man on the totem pole relative to the neighboring properties. So I trust I've answered some of the questions, and if the neighbor to the south would like to have follow-up conversations, we're more than happy to make ourselves available to explain the scheme to them.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Schum? There being none, and you've heard the points that were made by both neighbors, as well as the fact that this is 4 variances. There seems to be 17 letters of support, but there is an objection on file. There's a response letter in response to that objection letter. Please note that there's the May 2nd transport conditions as well as forestry. Members, can I get a motion? Member Kidd?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Listening to the concerns of the 2 adjoining neighbors, I realize they have perhaps legitimate concerns with regard to title, but those concerns aren't really addressed by the application for the minor variance. So I'm gonna put forward a motion to accept the application. I'm still concerned about the transportation services report, which recommended deferral. So I'm going to make it conditional to the conditions set out in the transportation report dated May 2nd, 2023, and also subject to forestry condition number 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you for that. Motion from Member Kidd to accept this application with those conditions and noting the deferral request from transportation services, but the application will be subject to transport, and so they'll have to satisfy the needs of transport in order to proceed. Can I get a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? This file has been unanimously approved with those conditions, Mr. Shum. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, members, let's move on to item number 12. Item number 12 is 276 POYNTZ Avenue. Members, there is no one else to speak to this application. This application is one to construct a new 2-story dwelling with an enclosed porch, rear walkout deck, and balcony. And there's 7 variances on file and only forestry conditions. I'll invite Agent Nafisa Zanjabadi. Ms. Zanjabadi, are you there?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. This is Nafisa Zanjabadi. I'm the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you require a presentation of Ms. Zanjabadi? There's nothing, no one else noted on file to speak to this application?
Madam Chair, we're going to make some changes to the application as per staff report.
Absolutely. There is a staff report noted here. I'm just going to double check because okay, they're going to put up the staff report because I may have missed that within my files. So let's pull that up for everyone to see. Okay, and so the staff report.
I think this is the, okay, so we are going to remove variance number 5, 6, and 7 that relates to the 3rd story based on the new definition of the basement. So variance number 5, 6, and 7 going to be removed.
Okay, variance 5, 6, and 7 be removed. So that leaves you with 4 variances. Are there any other changes you're making?
No.
Okay, thank you so much. So that meets the staff report, and that is a staff report of May 11th, and that was their recommendation, and they've met that. Okay, thank you so much for pointing that out. Is there anything else you'd like to say to committee members before they take this into deliberation?
Explanation that the 3 variances that we're asking, main wall height and the coverage, are within the neighborhood characteristics. And the front yard setback is because of the small projection we have on the second floor. Main floor wall aligns with the neighbors. We comply with the required front yard setback for main floor. And most of the second floor and just a little projection on second floor that causes this variance. And I'm happy to answer any questions if there is.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, do you have any final questions of Agent Giavatti? Okay, there being none, please note forestry conditions apply. There was the staff report that was put up, and then variances number 5, 6, and 7 have been removed to meet that staff report. Can I get a motion? Motion from Member Bartolo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, through you, in reviewing this application and with the amendments made here by the applicant. I'm in agreement with the staff report, and with the applicant, I will put forward a motion to approve this application subject to the following conditions: that variances 5, 6, and 7 be removed, and subject to the conditions noted in the urban forestry memo attached.
Okay, thank you so much, Member Bartolo. With a motion to approve this application with those conditions, can I get someone to second it? Member Hunt seconds. All those in favor? This application has been unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Members, let's move on to item number 13. Item number 13 is number 110 Banff Road. This application is to construct an addition to the rear of the existing dwelling in conjunction with a third-story addition, and the application is also applicant is also proposing interior and exterior alterations. Please note, members, that this has only 3 variances, and the only staff report that is on file is a transportation report of April 28th. Transport is requesting deferral. There is no one else to speak to this application. Let's bring out Ms. Parisa Amiri. Parisa Amiri, are you there?
Hi, yes, this is Parisa Amiri. I'm the applicant and the architect on this application. And my address, 50 Woodville Avenue, East York, Ontario.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just as transport is requesting deferral, did you have a chance to speak with them? Perhaps you may want to share as part of your presentation just
yes.
what's been done around.
I spoke with the zoning examiner assigned to this file. Actually, this was the discussion from the beginning of the project, because this, if you bring up my supporting material that have been submitted on May 5th, yes, and blew up the photo, it'll speak for itself. This parking path, which is in front of the this building, has been there for 10 years. My client just bought this property in November 2022, and like he and his wife wants to alter the property for their own need and have it as their own home. And because the parking pad is already there, we didn't know, and they didn't know, that it's not legal until we submitted zoning review material for the zoning department, and the zoning department reached out to transportation, and they said it's not a legal parking. And because technically it couldn't be mutual driveway through these 2 buildings to the backyard, although there is a right-of-way on the survey, but it's very narrow. None of these 2 houses, 2 neighbors, would be able to pass the car through this right-of-way to the backyard. This neighbor 112 has their own their own pad, and 110 had that one as well. We have been told, after we spoke with the zoning, we reached out to the seller, and they told this was been there since 10 years ago. And the lot is very small itself. It's 5.72 meter, and it's below 7 1.5 meter, which is the requirement for having the parking at all. So technically, the house doesn't need to have the parking because of the lot size. On the other hand, the front parking was there, and because of the right of way, the zoning examiner wouldn't be able to figure out whether she has to have the parking notice or not, but she put it anyway because she said it's better to, you are going to the committee of adjustment, it's better to point that out. And this is the history behind this house. Anyway, if if you don't feel comfortable to accept it as it is non-conforming as of right, but there is still enough space at the back of the property to accommodate the parking spot at the back of the property. We would be able to do that at the end of the day. But this is the existing situation, and in reality, it's very hard to pass the car through these two buildings. And again, the lot is undersized. I am happy to answer if there is any question. And if you want me to speak about the other variances, they are very in line with the neighborhood. As you see, there is an apartment building at the back of this property, which is very intense property. And the third variance, which is about the side yard setback, we are technically and basically continuing the existing south lot line for the third floor as well. And the third floor sitting in the middle of the existing length of the building. Some sort of a technical based on the R zone in that area. So this is something that we are requesting for relief.
Okay, thank you for that explanation and for sharing with us its existence for over 10 years. I'll see if the committee members have any questions. Ms. Amiri? Okay, there being none, we've heard the explanations provided by Ms. Amiri. There are only 3 variances. Transportation is triggered by this application now to request a deferral because of something that already has existed but doesn't meet their criteria. I'm not really sure what their considerations were. I have not spoken to them, but that's something to keep in mind that, for the record, they are asking for a deferral. And if you see fit and you still think that there needs to be a consideration for that, please consider that in your, your motion. And if not, you can indeed go ahead and approve or approve with conditions or deny. So that being said, can I get a motion on this? Okay, Member Bartolo?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, through you in listening to the applicant here and understanding the situation and seeing as this addition is fully at the rear of the property and does not interact with this parking pad, whether it be permitted or not. I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application as is.
Okay, so Member Bartolo, you are not going to go ahead with a deferral, just to be clear on that your motion is to approve?
No.
Okay, thank you for that. So Member Bartolo with motion to approve this application. Can I get someone to second this motion? There being no one to second this motion will fail. So no one seconds this motion. Can I get a new motion then? This committee, if you do need, we can go into a discussion, but I see Member Kidd with his hand up. Member Kidd with a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I'm not comfortable with approving this proposal with the concerns of the transportation. I'm going to put forward a motion to defer the application to allow the applicant to resolve the parking issues with transportation services.
Okay, thank you for that. Member Kidd with a motion to defer this application to allow the agent a bit more time, even if it is an existing condition, to discuss with transportation and come to some sort of fair negotiation. Seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Okay, and dissenting is Member Bartolo. So we've got your application has been deferred, Ms. Amiri, with the objection of speaking still with parking and gaining their approval to move forward with this application. Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
through you to Mr. Kidd, was your motion sine die?
Yes. Yes, I recognize that it is sine die. We're losing his volume there, but I will instinctively put that in there as well, that it is deferred sine die. Thank you, Mr. Hunt, for raising that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And let's move on, members, to item number 14. Item number 14 is 236 Les Mill Road. This item, it is 15 Aldershot Crescent. I keep looking at the agent's address instead. Thank you so much for that. So number 15 Aldershot Crescent, that's item number 14, is a proposal to construct a new dwelling. And we've got 7 variances here. Forestry applies. Transportation of May 2nd report has some conditions. No other staff report noted. There is no one to speak to this application. Members, I'll invite Ali Malik Zadeh to come out and speak to us. Mr. Malik Zadeh, are you there?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and then member of the committee. My name is Ali Malikzadeh, and the office address is 2336 Les Mills Road in Toronto.
All right, thank you so much. Members, transport just has some conditions. There is some forestry conditions, 7 variances. Do you feel that we need a presentation on this application, or can we move forward? Okay, there being none requested. Mr. Malik Zadeh, do you have anything to say to the members before we move into committee for decision making?
Thank you. Just the very general note on variances. Most of the variances is caused by some cosmetic architectural design around the house. Is a corner lot, and we wanted to upgrade the side and then front elevation at the same time. So there are some architectural element on the side, and then some canopies on the roof and on the side that cause some of the side yard and then front yard setback. Otherwise, it's very minor in nature, and I think it's very reasonable proposal for this property. Thank you so much. I'm more than happy to answer any question.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions of the agent right now? There being none, please note, again, for the record, 7 variances, forestry report, a transportation report with some conditions, no one else to speak to this application. Can I get a motion, please? Motion by Member Kidd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I feel the requested variances are minor in nature, and I'd like to put forward a motion to accept the application subject to the conditions set out in the transportation services report dated May 2nd, 2023, and also subject to forestry conditions number 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you for that. Member Kidd with a motion to approve this application with those conditions, seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? This application has been unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Members, let's move on to item number 15, which is 695 Oriole Parkway. Members, this is an application to legalize and maintain the constructed area rear deck that includes a shed. Please note, members, there's 8 variances, forestry conditions that may apply. There are 2 letters of support, but there is 1 letter of objection, and there is someone here to speak to this application. I'll invite a Christian Chan, the agent, to join us. Mr. Chan, are you there?
Good afternoon. Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Christian Chan, and my address is Suite 138 at 157 Adelaide Street West, and I'm the agent for the applicants, Ms. Agnes So and Mr. Andrew Dodd, the owners of the subject property.
Thank you. If you could provide us with a brief presentation on the merits of your case.
Absolutely, thank you. So the site is developed with a 3-story detached home, and just to note that this was authorized by Section 45(1) minor variance in 2020. So what's being proposed here is a rear yard deck that was constructed without the benefit of a building permit. So we're seeking variance approval for this to enable the applicants to apply for a building permit. So the immediate context is characterized by 1 to 3-story homes. Just to note too that these homes backing onto Eglinton Park that occur on Oriole Parkway have rear yards that are characterized by a significant drop in grade from the rear yards of approximately 5 to 8 meters. And this landscape characteristic is shared among the properties from 697 Oriole Parkway all the way down to number 661. So this is shown as figure 1 on page 2 of my supporting materials that I submitted to the Committee of Adjustment. The nearby rear yard landscape open spaces of the adjacent and nearby properties, those being 697, 689, 691, 685, 683. These are the properties that back onto the park nearby, and these also have significant slopes to the park. So these are also characterized by rear yard decks that are constructed over the sloped portions of the rear yards to enable effective use of those rear yards as amenity areas. Many of these properties also contain rear yard sheds. With respect to the variances 4 through 8, Madam Chair, these are related to building length, building depth, maximum FSI, and rear yard setback, side yard setbacks. In my opinion, these are technical variances. As we can see and noted in the public notice that the shed on deck is now included notation. This is as the shed is a structure that is not on the ground and constructed as part of the deck structure. This deck structure itself is attached to the main house, and as such, the shed is technically included in the calculation of the principal building's FSI, length, depth, and setbacks. So in my recommendation, should this committee find to approve the variances for 4 to 8, it is my recommendation that a condition of approval shall be for the plans to be substantially constructed in accordance with Site Plan SK01 and Elevation Plan SK02 dated August 30th, 2022. And those rear deck elevations are shown in Figure 2 on page 3 of the supporting materials. Regarding variances 1 and 2, the rear deck projects 10.36 meters from the rear wall and has smaller setbacks for a deck than required by the zoning bylaw for the extent of the deck reaching to the rear portion of the property. And this is as to be a usable rear yard amenity space. The site has the smallest usable level rear yard area for the properties adjacent to it and has a significant slope towards Eglinton Park. As we can see in Figure 2, the rear yard has a very small level area that is usable towards the western extent. The purpose of this design is to provide a rear amenity surface, level surface area for the use of Mrs. So's and Mr. Dodd's family, that would otherwise be inaccessible given the significant change in grade that occurs on at least 60% of the rear yard area. The shed is located 0.29 meters from the south lot line, which is 1 centimeter less than the required setback for ancillary buildings. Had the shed been proposed as a separate structure. With regards to variance 3, this is the reduction in soft landscaping in the rear yard. A small portion of the east, rear, and north side of the rear yard will remain open to the sky, and the remaining area will be covered by the deck. The deck surface is constructed to allow water infiltration through the deck boards. It will allow water to drain through the deck boards and into the ground, retaining the ability of rainwater to permeate into the ground below the surface of the deck. The function of the soft landscaping below the deck is retained for the required 50% soft landscaping in the rear yard. With respect to the official plan, there is a policy in 4.1.5G that provides direction as to rear yard characteristics of a proposed development. In this case, the rear yard deck enables effective use of the rear yard as an amenity area where the rear yard is significantly sloped down towards Eglinton Park. The natural function of the rear yard's ground is still maintained because the deck boards will allow water to permeate through the deck into the ground. Also, to speak to character, the adjacent and nearby properties are characterized as containing rear decks that provide level amenity space in the rear yards, or those portions of the rear yard that would otherwise be unsuitable for use. With respect to public consultation, we
I'll
had a
ask
mail
you to
out to
please
the
summarize.
adjacent neighbors. Yes, Madam Chair, we had a mail out that went to the adjacent neighbors, and I'd just like to highlight and note that we have support from the adjoining neighbors to the north and south, that being 697 Oriole Parkway and 691, and also to note that city planning has not commented and therefore provide no objections to the proposal. I'd also like to note that there's a condition of urban forestry, conditions number 2 or 3, that are recommended to be imposed, and there's no objection from my clients on that basis. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. Well noted. Members, any questions of Mr. Chan? Okay, if there are no questions, let's move on to the first area resident who wishes to speak, and that's Tom Cody. Mr. Cody, are you there?
Oh,
Yes, if you could state your name and address for the record, please.
hold on. Hello?
Yes, go ahead, please. State your name and
Yeah, you've got
address.
Tom Cody, but it's for case number 22.
So you're not speaking to 695 Oriole Parkway, you're speaking...
No, not at all. I've registered for 22.
Okay, case number 22 is not being heard until after 2 p.m.
Yes, that's so I understand, but I thought I was
Yes.
allowed just to listen in.
And that's for 6 Park Lane Circle, right? So
yes,
what we'll
yes,
do...
Chairman, that's
Okay,
yes.
what we'll do is we'll put you in there as an additional speaker for item number 22. You can indeed listen in if you'd like to, but we'll get to your item after 2 p.m., so you can tune in then.
That's fine, and I presume I will be able to talk at that time. You
Yes,
won't block me,
absolutely.
so to speak. Okay,
Okay.
sorry for that. I don't know why I'm in on the wrong item here.
That's okay.
Whatever.
Sometimes there might be errors made, and that's all right. Not a problem. So thank you so much for that. Let's move on. Members, you've heard what Mr. Chan has had to say. Forestry conditions apply. There is 1 letter of objection on file, 2 letters of support, and 8 variances. There was a previous decision on the file. I'll urge you to have a look at that. And if there are no further questions of Mr. Chan, can I get a motion, please? Member Kidd with a motion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the site visit, I did note that this is a very unusual lot, and in my opinion, it's the type of lot that does require an unusual solution to its problems. However, I think that that's the type of solution that should be worked out with planning staff, and that hasn't happened. That didn't happen in this case, and for that reason, I'm going to put forward a motion to refuse this application.
Okay, motion from Member Kidd to refuse this application. Can I get a seconder for that? Seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? Okay, so 3 are in favor. Opposed? Okay, Member Manning opposed. Mr. Chan, your application has been refused.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I just note that we did contact community planning staff and they both voiced no objections on this application.
Okay, thank you for that. A motion has been made. All right, let's move on to item number 16, which is 362 Rosewell Avenue. 362 Rosewell Avenue there's only one variance noted on file. There is no other staff reports or conditions. Members, do we need a presentation? Well, first of all, let's bring out the agent, which is Jordan DeJong Shillings. Mr. DeJong Shillings, are you there?
Afternoon, Madam Chair and members of committee.
Yes.
I am present.
Okay, thank you so much. If you can state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Jordan DeJong Shillings, coming to you on behalf of Four Seasons Sunrooms and Additions, speaking on terms of our client at 362 Rosewell Avenue.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Given that there's nothing, no other staff reports, members, do you require a presentation on this application? Okay, there being none requested. Mr. DeJong Shillings, do you have anything else to say before we take this into committee for deliberation?
I do not.
Okay, there being nothing else, and unless there's questions from committee members, can I get a motion on this application, please? Motion from Member Bartolo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, through you. It's a very straightforward application, and I will put forward a motion to approve it with no conditions.
Okay, motion to approve this application as is, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Your application has been unanimously approved, Mr. DeJong Shillings. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated, and thank you everyone who is present.
Okay. Let's move on, members, to item number 17. Number 17 is number 6 Cicada Court. This application, let me pull this up. This is an application to construct a new dwelling. Members, please note there are 7 variances. There are forestry reports. There's a forestry report. There is transportation on file, but they have no objections. There is a staff report of April 26th. They're asking for some revisions or modifications that are requested. And there is a Councillor Robinson letter on file that's asking for deferral. And this is really a specific type of request because Councillor Robinson is saying that, and I'll pull the letter up here, it's of May 4th, saying that she's been advising that the application has been substantially amended since the public notice was distributed, and to give the interested parties, such as the Don Mills Residents Associate Incorporated, a fair opportunity to review the revised plans. She would like to ask the committee members to defer this application. So we will have to address that comment on deferral. Let's invite the applicant out. Mr. Lauren Rose, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. State your name and address for our records, please.
Lauren Rose, 388 Spadina Road.
Okay, thank you so much. Because there's no one else to speak to this application, and because of the comments that were made and likely also approached to the councillor by the Residents Association, I'd like to address the matter of a deferral. Would you mind sharing your thoughts on if this were to go into committee to be deferred? How do you feel about that?
Okay, sure. I will note that we did whatever planning asked us to do to amend the application. Unfortunately, planning doesn't always give you a lot of time to amend drawings. We like to work with planning to get that done. It doesn't always give neighbors enough time. However, in this case, we did, and the Ratepayers Association acknowledges that they were aware 10 days before the hearing that the changes were made, which is in fact the case. The Planning Act says that neighbors are supposed to get 10 days notice, but all of the councillors have asked that notices go out 23 days ahead of hearings, which causes more problems when planning asks us closer to a hearing to make changes. So I don't feel that it's worth deferring the application. Everyone has written it based on the revisions to the drawings, which I hope to present to you today.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Well, based on this and the fact that council does require around 22 or 23 days for this, and that there is that type of objection here, why don't you provide us with a brief presentation on the merits of your application, and let's take it into committee to determine about the deferral, or if they'd like to proceed with making motion to either approve or deny or approve with conditions. We'll see how this works out. There's no one else to speak to this application, but if you can present to us the merits of your case, that would be really helpful.
Sure. I do know that the people did write in, aside from the councillor, they did acknowledge the changes to the drawing. So there is actually a revised zoning notice, but it does say the same things that my marked up ones say here. So variance 3, before we start, will be changed from 23.8 to 21.49.
Okay.
And that's the rear yard setback to the terrace, not to the house. Number 4, the same. It'll be 21.49, not 23.80. And variance 5, the rear yard setback, will be 9.22, not 6.9. And variance 6, if you choose to approve this application, I suggest, as I discussed with the planner, that the coverage for the house would be 35%, and plus another 5% for the excavated porch, for a total of 40%. That would help for any problems with people using precedent in the future. So 35% for the house and 5% for the terrace, only because the terrace is excavated. If it was not excavated, 5% of the lot area is permitted for a terrace. But if you want, I can then go through the whole presentation. Those were just the changes. Do you want me to proceed?
Yes, continue, please. Go ahead.
You will note that there is full planning support with these changes. They have vetted the application with other applications in the area. The first variance is for a slight height variance of 10.88 over the 10-meter limit. That's to the top of the roof. The second variance is for the height of sidewalls, exterior sidewalls. We're asking for 0.795 when 7.95 when 7.5 is permitted. I will note that 9 Cicada and 10 Cicada have respectively 8.36 meters for their sidewalls and 8.44, which are much higher than what we're proposing. So in number 3, if staff can put up my site plan, my revised site plan, please. The length of the house, the actual length of the house is really just under 17 meters. The site plan, if you go up, the house is there it is. The house itself, the two-story portion, is just under 17 meters plus a 0.6 meter bay entrance at the front. There is no one-story projection here, but we do have a porch that is excavated. If the porch wasn't excavated, it would not count in length and it would not count in coverage. So that's the same thing for the depth and length. Although length, you're only allowed 17 meters. In depth, you're allowed 19 meters. So we are well under those if you don't include the excavated porch. As you've heard me say this before, the only thing that affects is worms. No one in the neighborhood can tell whether this porch is excavated or not. The rear yard setback required 9.78. We are 9.22 to the excavated porch. We are 13.18 to the house. If you look at the house beside it, number 8, you will see the back of his house is closer to the rear yard setback than our porch. So this is a prevalent theme in this neighborhood where on the cul-de-sac, the houses move back and are closer to the rear yard. Again, the coverage, if you choose to accept this application, as planning has suggested, you might want to word it at 35% coverage for the house and an extra 5% for the porch. There are many applications with 35% coverage in the area. 5 Cicada has 35.3, 14 Banbury 37.8, 68 Granville 35, 48 Larkfield 34.8, 32 Larkfield 35.2. So there are many just in the immediate area that have it coverage higher than that. And then the front stairs, and this is a silly variance, it's not, the stairs are not even as wide as the front stoop, but I don't know why this is a variance on applications. It's to make the house look nicer. So I can answer any questions that you have, but most importantly, this has been vetted by planning.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions of Agent Rose today? Okay, if there's none, then we're in the process for a motion. And just to be really clear, we've got 7 variances. There's transportation report, no objections. There is a forestry condition. The staff report, the revisions have been made by Mr. Rose to meet all of the conditions of the staff report, and number 6 has been modified to the 40%, but just to note that 35% of that is the house and 5% is for the terrace. And please again note Councillor Robinson's request for a deferral to give residents a chance to be aware of the modifications that have been made and presented here today. But the agent has given the 10-day notice, which has been acknowledged by the Don Mills residents. And, that being said, we do have to consider the deferral as a matter of, one of the options as well for your motion. Member Manning, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think the public has had an opportunity to participate despite the changes to the application. Nobody's here today to speak, and the applicant has only made improvements to the application, so I don't think a deferral would be appropriate in these circumstances. The applicant has made all of the amendments recommended by the staff report. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion to approve this application subject to the following changes. Variance number 3, change to 21.49. Variance number 4 as well, change to 21.49. Variance number 5.
9.22.
Thank you. Change to 9.22. And variance number 6, the lot coverage changed to 40%, and specifically stating that 35% of that is for the house and 5% for the excavated porch. and also subject to the conditions of forestry.
Okay, thank you. A motion from Member Manning to not defer, but instead to approve the application subject to those conditions. Can I have someone to second that motion, please? Seconded by Member Bartolo. All those in favor? Unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you, Mr. Rose.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
All right, everyone, let's move over to item number 18. This is 251 Cranbrook Avenue. 251 Cranbrook Avenue, we do have a couple of folks here that wish to speak to this application. Well, one person in particular. And this is an application or proposal to construct a new two-story dwelling with a front porch, rear platform, and walkout. Please note, members, that there are 7 variances, forestry conditions. There are 15 letters of support, 1 letter of objection, and transportation does have a report, but they offer no comments. So for that reason, let's bring out the agent, Mr. Glenn Rubinoff. Mr. Rubinoff, are you there?
Yes, good afternoon. It's Glenn Rubinoff.
Okay, thank you. Your address, please, Mr. Rubinoff, for the record.
Yes, the address. My address is at 18 Gloucester Lane, Toronto, Ontario.
Okay, thank you. Because there is someone noted to speak here today, and this person noted as an agent who presented earlier, how about you provide the committee with a brief presentation on the merits of your application, and then we'll move into the residents wishing to speak. Go ahead.
Sure, thank you very much. Good afternoon, committee. So this is an application for a new house at 251 Cranbrook. I just wanted to note that there is no planning report. They felt they had no need to comment on this. We had been back and forth with them, and at the end they decided after we made adjustments to the plans that they had no concerns. So just wanted to put that out there as well. So this is an application with 7 variances before you. There's a couple of items I wanted to draw your attention to. We can go through the variances first. So the first variance is for a small projection in the front, which creates a front yard setback variance. It's just a partial extension in the front. The second one is a variance related to density, and that's related to the basement and being included in the calculation. Above grade, we have 83.5%. If you could go to the area map that we provided, that can kind of give some comparables in the area. There's actually a couple of supporting documents we submitted, one of which is a map and one of which is also related to the building length. Variance number 3 is for a variance length of 19.29 meters. Above grade, the variance is 17.6 meters, but because we extend the basement a little further back, that's where the length is coming from. So could I ask staff to show the supporting documents we provided to illustrate the points? Or not? Thank you.
Yes, they're pulling that up, and in the meantime, continue.
Yeah, so if I could just, if you could go into that colored document there. So that's kind of an illustration. The basement is in the kind of purplish color. That's illustrating the fact that the basement extends beyond, but the actual above grade building, that massing, is really just 0.6 over the proposed building length permitted. If I can also just illustrate that density includes that purple area in the basement. And if you zoom in a little bit on the numbers there, the basement density accounts for 32.32 density is from the basement, and 0.835 is for above grade. If you go down to the next map, just down below that, the subject property is the pink one, or in the middle there. The adjacent, the ones with the green are neighbors in support that my client went around and spoke with. There's a lot of comparables of densities all within 85, 87%, and so on, and we're at 83.5. So the one next door, for instance, at 249 has an 86% density that was approved at committee not too long ago. The other, there are length variances as well in the area. I feel like this is really not out of character with redevelopment that's going on in the street. And some of the other variances that I did not go through are primarily related to setbacks, which are in line with the home. So we have a requested we have the eaves projection on the short side, on the 0.45 side. There's a variance related to that. There's the platform in the rear is just in line with the building, so it's at 0.45. And same on the other side is variance number 7. So it's primarily about a lot of the variances are related to the building itself being set in the same position as the adjacent buildings in the area. You have a right of way on one side and you have a 0.45 setback on the other side. And we've tried to work within those parameters. As you can see, there's a fair number of support there. So I'll leave it at 7 seconds to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Rubinoff? Okay, there being none, let's move on to the next speaker, who was an agent that presented earlier. Mr. Mehdi Ajvand, are you there? You're representing Masood Dekori and Solar Magzi, who are neighbors. Please state your name and address for the records.
Sure. My name is Mehdi Ajvand. I'm here on behalf of my client, owner of 253 CRANBROOKE. Thank you so much. Thank you for Mr. Rubinoff for his presentation. It's a bit weird for me. Usually I am on the other side of the desk and defending the case. These times, as a direction of my client, I'm opposing a case. Actually, don't want to waste a weight of committee panel. The main reason that we are here for this opposition is the combination of front setback variance and building depth. These two combination, it's gonna cause a dangerous precedent. Even we don't have any simple case for applying for front setback in a neighborhood. I believe we have to have a good reason to do that, and also on top of that, applying for building depth while our neighboring building are not. They are comply with 17 meter, and this building is asking for 19.29. Which it should be added the front setback variance as well. So it's gonna make the actual building length number to 19.68 meter. Since the zoning designation is R, there is no building length requirement, but that building depth is calculated from the minimum required front setback. So whatever front setback that the applicant asks, it should be added to the building length as well. So the number is 19.68 is too much. And if we can have this proposed site plan on the screen, as you can see, the proposed building is projected from both neighbor on 253 and also 255, 254 the other side. 253 definitely, I know that our proposed length is 17 meter, which is in compliance with the zoning bylaw. On the other side, 249, although I see that on the supportive document they indicated that it is 17.3. But anyway, when I did the measurement, it was less than that. It was 17 meter. But anyway, there is still a difference of 19 meter over there, which I believe going to cause another dangerous precedent in this neighborhood, applying for extra length and applying for front setback. Easily, they could push back the building to avoid to get a front setback. For me, as someone that would do the design on daily basis, I'm attending in a committee on a weekly basis over there. Definitely, if this case is approve, I'm going to refer to this case later on and I say, okay, we have a front setback variance approved over there. Why not applying for that? That's why I suggest the case to be deferred or refused to this combination be resolved to avoid to have this kind of precedent in a neighborhood.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Ajvand? Okay, that being said, let's move it back to Mr. Rubinoff. You have heard the representative for the neighbors and quite a lot of concern around the depth and other issues raised. If you'd care to respond to that.
Sure, thank you very much. So as I was pointing out earlier, the extension beyond the 17.6 is for the basement portion. It's actually for the deck. If you look at the site plan, that was just up there and zoom in, the terrace at the back there, if you slide down, the majority of that is related to the terrace. That 1.78 meters, that's the portion that brings it up to the variance, but the actual above grade portion is at 17.6, which is taken, if you slide up to the top of the site plan, it's taken from that little bump out extension at the top there. So it's actually, it sounds worse than it is. We're really not talking about something that will have shadowing or shadowing effect, because we're really just talking about the porch level extending beyond, not the first or second floor above it. And again, planning looked at this and had no concerns with this, nor did the other neighbors who we canvassed in the area. And as far as, I think that was the main concern that they had, was about the depth, but I believe that the neighbor at 253, they have 17 meters, but they also have a deck, a fairly high deck as well, and it projects over 3 meters back. So I can't see how the impact would be more. In fact, it would probably be less, considering that. But at this point in time, we can only deal with the variances before you. So,
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Rubinoff? There being none, just to share again, there are 7 variances. Forestry does apply. There are 15 letters of support, the 1 letter of the objection, and no comments from transport. Can I get a motion? Motion from Member Bartolo.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In reviewing this and listening to the arguments on both sides, I'm inclined to agree with the application of the applicant here. I do see these small bump outs and portions as minor, and don't foresee any real adverse impacts on neighboring properties. Therefore, I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application subject to the conditions of the urban forestry memo attached.
Okay, motion
Through
from...
you, Madam Chair,
Yes, sure, go ahead.
Can I request a friendly amendment
Friendly
to tie it to the site plan?
Yeah, no issues with that at all.
Okay, motion from Member Bartolo to accept this application with those conditions and to tie it to the site plan, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Okay, unanimously approved with those conditions, Mr. Rubinoff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, members, let's move on to item number 19. And the 19 is 83 Allingham Gardens. Members, this is an application to construct a second-story addition over an existing dwelling. Please note that there are 5 variances and 5 letters of support. There is the owner on the file, but there's no one else to speak to this application. Members, do you require a presentation on this application? Okay.
Yes.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, there being none, let's bring out the owner, Mr. Daniel Lewis, the agent, Daniel Lewis. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. There's a bit of echoing in the background, so I'd ask you to turn down any other devices you have. But the members here don't require a presentation from you. If you can actually state your name and address for the record as well. Mr. Lewis, we're going to be contacting you to rejoin. Right? Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you state your name and address for the record, please? Mr. Lewis. Okay, he may have disconnected himself. The owner is Matthew Urbach on the line.
Yes, hello.
Yes,
everyone.
hi, Mr. Urbach. If you could state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. My name is Matthew Urbach, and my address is 83 Allingham Gardens.
All right. As it stands, Mr. Urbach, the members here don't require a presentation. They're wanting to go into committee for decision-making right away. Is there anything that you would like to share with the members before they go into decision-making on this application?
I'm not sure what happened to Mr. Lewis, but the only thing I can perhaps add is that all of the variances sought relate to existing conditions.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Members, do you have any questions of the owner, Mr. Urbach, at this time? Okay, there being none, please, yes? Okay. Well, they're both given 5 minutes, and I think that it's one or the other that represents, and we're moving on to a decision right now. So there's 5 variances, 5 letters of support. Can I get a motion on this? Motion by Member Hunt.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Acknowledging that there are no department comments or concerns, and there are several letters of support, I would move approval of this as minor and meeting the 4 tests.
Okay, thank you. Motion from Member Hunt to approve this application as is, seconded by Member Manning. All those in favor? Mr. Urbach and Mr. Lewis, this application has been unanimously approved without condition. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 20, which is the last item of, the AM session. We are running behind, so let's move on to number 31, Elvina Gardens. This application, 31 Elvina Gardens, is an application to enclose an existing front porch, rear yard, 2-story addition, and rear yard deck. There are a couple of folks here to speak to this application. Members, please note that there's only 4 variances, there is forestry conditions, and there is a staff report where there's conditions on approval. Once you approve, there are certain conditions that they're requesting. Let's bring out Atoivo Vahel. Mr. Vahel, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, committee members. And I'll try to be brief.
If you can state your name and address, please, for the record.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes, Toivo Vahi, 17 Bridle Trail.
Okay, thank you. And if you can go into a brief presentation to the members on the merits of your application, just because there's a number of other speakers that would like to talk.
Yes, I'll try to make this brief. The purpose of the application, as you stated, was to enclose the existing front porch and to construct a new two-story rear addition and deck to an existing semi-detached single-family dwelling. The requested variances, items 1 through 3 of the zoning bylaw, as stated, are primarily relate to the enclosure of the existing front porch. The staff report dated April 26, 2023 from Community Planning recommends that the front yard setback be developed in accordance with the attached site plan, which is the site plan that we submitted. The report goes on saying that the front yard setback variance is the result of enclosing the existing front porch and only applies to the portion of the front yard. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed front yard setback is consistent with front yard setbacks of existing dwellings within the neighborhood. It meets the intent of the official plan, the zoning bylaw, and its minor nature and appropriate with the development for the site. Item 4 relates to the overall floor space index, where we are asking for permission of 0.72. In the applicable residential R zoning bylaw, 10.10.40.40, it states in paragraph 1, in the R zone, the permitted maximum floor space index is 0.6, which is noted on the zoning notice. Paragraph 2, however, states that if a lot in the R zone has a permitted maximum floor space index of 0.6, has a detached house, a semi-detached house, which is our case, it is erected on or before October 15th of 1953, which is our case, the overall floor space index for the lot, including the addition, does not exceed 0.069. So that's saying that if you only applied for a rear addition, you're allowed to have an increase of the FSI to 0.069. Because of the front yard enclosure, that adds a 0.02 addition to our FSI, which brings us to the 0.72. That's the reason why I quoted that excerpt from the bylaws. This is also evident at an address 39 Elvina Gardens, a few doors down, where a very similar addition, two-story rear addition, was issued a permit to construct back in 2016 with a floor space index of 0.68. So in saying this, had we not requested for the front porch to be enclosed as well, we could have avoided committee of adjustments and just gone straight through for a building permit application based on this bylaw. The homeowners obviously felt very enlightened that they could actually get approval for the front yard enclosure because they've seen it on the street in many cases, and because it's such a valuable little piece of floor for growing family and the entry. I'd like to also add that there's letter of support from the neighbors immediately to the east and to the rear yard, and amongst others. I know that there's going to be opposition from the neighbor to the west. It is a semi-detached home, and unfortunately, everybody loves to have the extra space in which a detached home would offer, but in this case, any addition is going to put a wall on the property line. So I'll close it in saying that, and we'll listen to the opposition.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, do you have any questions of the agent today? Okay, there being none, let's move on to the first speaker, area resident Jacob Hollander. Mr. Hollander, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, and if you could state your name and address for the records, please.
Hi, my name is Jacob Hollander. I live at 29 Elvina Gardens.
Thank you. And can you share your thoughts on this application?
Of course. So I just wanted to state that professionally, actually, I work in real estate development. And prior to working in private sector real estate development, I worked quite a bit with Toronto Community Housing and the Housing Secretariat on building affordable housing units. So I want to acknowledge that I recognize Toronto as a living and breathing city, and that there's constant change throughout the city. And that's something I accept by living in the city. But it also gave me quite a healthy respect for the planning process. So this is not my first rodeo when it comes to things of this nature. I am the proponent's direct neighbor. So I share a partition wall, front yard, a rear yard, and any and all decking at the front and rear yard will both be against my lot line, as well as the rear extension. So, something I love about planning personally and planning law is the opportunity to build a better community and to work with those that surround you and your neighbors in your neighborhood and try to make a positive impact on it. And something I've always heard from federal ministers, from councillors, from city staff is that having stakeholder engagement early and often is extremely important. And unfortunately, I wasn't awarded that opportunity with the proponent. I actually had to hunt down the proponent myself via the online applications email and reach out to him to see if we could have a discussion, see if we couldn't get his application scaled back. My primary concerns here are the shadow impact of my backyard. So they're doing a zero lot line extension at the rear. It's 2 stories. It is 3.7 meters long, and that is a 150% exceedance in the current rear lot line requirements. It will add considerable shadowing impact to my backyard and have substantial detriment to my reasonable enjoyment of my backyard, as well as kill all plants. I have large windows at the back of my house, which will no longer get any sunlight throughout the majority of the summer, spring, and fall. I have shadowing studies that show that. I'd like the council members to also please note that there are 8 letters of objection here, including 3 in a row directly to the west of that house, among others, and there are 5 letters of support. 2 of the letters of support actually were flipped to letters of objection because they had been told by the proponent or their agent that it was actually just a renovation. My second issue here is the front yard. The front yard setback is not consistent with other homes. As noted, the other homes do have enclosures out front, but do not exceed the FSI. I would request that you reject this application on the basis that the FSI and density of both the front addition as well as rear addition do not fit the neighborhood, are far more appropriate for a single detached home, which this is not. And particularly when you construct on a semi-detached home, stakeholder engagement is very, very important because you're impacting people far more. My second or third concern rather is that these homes are 100 years old, as admitted by the proponent themselves. I've demolished a number of 100-year-old homes in my career, and they pretty much all contain highly hazardous materials. I'm having a child in my first daughter in August. That's extremely concerning to me. There's lead, there's arsenic, there's high levels of asbestos in many of these places. There's no hazardous material report. There's no abatement report. There's no shadow study. This application is purely being made in a vacuum in which you don't have neighbors or are a single detached home with a larger lot, in which case I would be fully supportive of this. I reached out to the applicant. I said, I'd love to work with you on this. Let's see if we can get a reduction in the rear yard and a reduction in the
I'll ask you to
total
please
FSI.
summarize.
In summary, I would seek your rejection of this application based on the severe detriment of the reasonable enjoyment of my own home, the hazardous material impact that it may have, it's extremely contentious within this neighborhood, having 8 letters of objection. It's a 0 lot line wall running against my line, my home, materially impacting the enjoyment of my home, and that stakeholder engagement was barely held at all with anyone. Very few of my neighbors even knew that this was taking place until the sign went up, and it's extremely upsetting. And ultimately, I think it sets a very dangerous precedent that stakeholder engagement doesn't matter if this is approved.
Okay, thank you. Members, do you have any questions of Mr. Hollander? There being none, let's move to the next speaker, Antonio Santos. Mr. Santos, are you there? You've been unmuted. If you can state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Antonio Santos. I live at 35 Elvina Gardens. I don't have any objections at this point. I just wanted to participate to understand the process.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Unless members have any questions, we can move on to the next speaker. The next speaker noted is Blazo Pesican. Blazo Pesican, are you there? Mr. Pesican, if you can state your name and address, you've been... Oh, he's not noted. So we'll just move on then. Mr. Vahil, you've heard the comments of both the neighbors that have dialed in. You have, 5 minutes to rebut and provide any commentary on anything that they've noted. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I do sympathize with the neighbor directly beside the homeowner at 29 Elvina Gardens. I understand that he just purchased this property a few months ago, and of course that's an upsetting thing to know that right away an addition has been proposed. And I know he has lobbied and gone up and down the street to gain some support, but in no way that the actual homeowner did not correspond with him. I know that was he went up and down the street himself, obviously, because he gained support on his own, and he's been in the neighborhood walking the dog and speaking with neighbors. Again, this is kind of irrelevant because what the actual committee is responsible to make a decision on are what's in front of us in the variances. And the variances, in our respect, we feel that are very minor in nature. The staff report supports us in regards to the front yard porch enclosure. No other conditions in regards to the rear yard two-story addition have been noted in respect to height, length, depth. So we have been compassionate in that regards. We essentially are building one-room addition 2 stories high. This is a small semi-detached home. It is in a neighborhood that is in transition. There certainly are some bigger projects happening in the neighborhood, and the homeowners are invested and have been invested in this property and wish to just make their life a little bit better, like everybody else wants in this, in the urban environment. So we feel that what we're asking for in these variances are minor in respect and meet all the 4 conditions.
Okay, thank you so much. Members.
I stand at that.
Yeah. Do you have any questions of Mr. Vahe? Okay, there being none, please note what the respective neighbors have noted. Please interpret Mr. Vahel's rebuttal. There is 4 street conditions, 4 variances. The staff report of May 11th has some conditions upon approval, and there is some letters of support. Please, can I get a motion? Member Bartolo.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I listened to the explanation on both sides of this case here, and I am, sympathetic to semi-detached neighbors and some of their arguments, as well as the proponents here. However, I do agree with the staff report and seeing this addition as minor, and some of the other arguments related to the demolition and other factors, unfortunately, are not within our purview. And I do hope good relations between neighbors and continued communication. That being said, I'm going to put forward a motion to approve this application, subject that it be developed substantially in accordance with the plans submitted before the committee and subject to the conditions of the forestry memo attached.
Okay, thank you. Motion from Member Bartolo to accept this application with those conditions. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Member Hunt. All those in favor? Okay, unanimously approved with those conditions. Thank you so much. Members, we do have to return for the PM session, which all the members are probably logged in on the call waiting, but we haven't had a break for lunch. We do have about 12 items because there is one deferral request coming in. Would you like to do half an hour? Does that sound okay? Or did you let me know? We'll come back at 2:45. Is that okay? All right. See you then. 2:45 for the PM session. Thank you.